Chapter 277, Breakthrough Assistance. Even their elder was afraid to offend Wang Xian and his group, let alone allowing his own people to provoke them. They were simply digging their own graves. The young men lying on the ground were despondent. Sensing their crippled limbs and the immense pain, they blacked out immediately. Wang Xian waved his hands in dismissal when the elder of Qingmu sect apologized to him profusely. He then turned to Tang Yinshuan. "Let's go." Radiance flickered in Tang Yinshuan's eyes as she sized up Wang Xian from head to toe. She quickly followed behind him after some ponderings. Initially, she thought that this youngest man among the group was only the disciple or junior of the other two inborn experts. However, she recalled something. Along with the attitude from the elder of Qingmu sect, she thought of someone. Miracle Dr. Wang of Rivertown. In that case, he isn't a disciple or junior. He was the pivot point among the three of them. Tang Yinshuan pondered to herself as she fixed her eyes on Wang Xian, who was walking in the middle. He was ranked 8th on Miracle Doctor's chart at the age of 20, and several inborn experts are at his disposal. Tang Yinshuan was stupefied as she followed behind. The sissy young man sulked as he followed behind her. He looked at the three men who were walking in the front with awe. Initially, he thought they were just 3 bodyguards, but now it was completely bullshit. Can the bodyguards be that dominating? Besides, he noticed that he had offended Tang Yinshuan, who seemed to be displeased with him. "Ching, you may go back now." At this time, his expression changed because Tang Yinshuan's emotionless voice came from ahead. "Yes, Yinshuan." He looked sullen, stopped, and headed in the other direction. Oh! Just then, Wang Xian, who was walking in front, suddenly halted. He whirled around and looked at Tang Yinshuan. "Her? May I know what's wrong, Miracle Dr. Wang?" asked Tang Yinshuan respectfully after learning Wang Xian's identity. "Is there a better way to lure the killer out?" "Lure the killer?" Tang Yinshuan froze for a moment as she pondered. "That's right. Lure the killer so that he can strike again." Wang Xian nodded. He realized that he could not keep following Tang Yinshuan around passively. What if the killer didn't show up? Their 2 months' effort would be in vain. Most importantly, they probably would lose the killer if they could not locate him in the meantime. Imo Ersan and Imo Sanyu would have died in vain. They could never have died for nothing. And they could not sit back and wait for the killer. Tang Yinshuan knit her eyebrows slightly as she walked beside Wang Xian. "One thing that I'm very sure of is that the killer must have tried to assassinate me just to stop me from being the saintess of Heavenly Sound Sect. If the mastermind feels that I'm a huge threat, I might be assassinated again. It's just that I'm unsure if they will take the risk after knowing I have 2 inborn experts beside me." Wang Xian frowned as he fixed his eyes on Tang Yinshuan. "So you mean the killer will strike again if you have a higher chance of becoming the saintess?" "That's right. I'm looking for a breakthrough now. I have the confidence to do so within 2 months. I can probably take the risk to help you guys then," said Tang Yinshuan to Wang Xian. "That's too slow. What's your current level now?" asked Wang Xian immediately. "Peak of level 9. I'm a half step away from half step to Inborn. Once I reach the half step to Inborn realm, I'll have a 70% chance to become the saintess of Heavenly Sound Sect." Tang Yinshuan answered. "Really?" Wang Xian nodded his head slightly as he looked elsewhere. "There's a park by the lake. Let's go there, and you can play me a song." "Her?" Tang Yinshuan was a little doubtful. She hesitated with a nod, but she did not pose any further questions. It was 9 p.m. at that time, and the park was almost empty. Tang Yinshuan sat on a stone bench in a remote corner near the lake. She looked at Wang Xian and placed her zither on her lap. "I practice music notes that are water attribution, using the flexibility of water to make a penetration attack." As she spoke, she placed her slender and fair fingers on the zither. Ding-dong! As the pleasant sound of the zither played, cool and moist air surged. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly. He observed the surroundings with his piercing eyes. With his vision, he saw faint water elemental energy gathering in the air. Tang Yinshuan was controlling the energy movement. She could make these water elements condense into liquid arrows for assaulting or binding people. On the surface of the lake, the water ripples began to ripple outwards in the opposite direction. Fish surfaced out of the lake water with their mouths open, waiting to be fed. The entire situation formed a picture of a fairy playing zither with fish paying respect to her. You lack something. As he gazed upon Tang Yinshuan's petite figure, he froze for a moment as he hurriedly checked her 8 extraordinary meridians. With a tint of sapphire radiance flickering in Wang Xian's eyes, a blue water current encircled him. The surrounding fish were excited as they leaped out of the water like they were jumping across it. Tang Yinshuan, who was playing her zither, opened her eyes and looked at Wang Xian with disbelief on her face. Marine Divine Dragon was swimming inside Wang Xian's eyes, and the surrounding water elements in the air were bouncy and spirited. Ready to make a breakthrough, said Wang Xian to Tang Yinshuan. Tang Yinshuan was slightly stunned. As she sensed the immense water elements in the air, a sharp radiance flickered in her eyes. She immediately closed her eyes and stopped the music. Wang Xian slowly extended out his arm as he guided the water spiritual energy from his hand to Tang Yinshuan's body. As soon as the water spiritual energy entered her body, her cheeks flushed. She quickly focused, making use of the immense energy to make a breakthrough. As the water energy kept pouring into her body, the energy in the surrounding air slowly disappeared. Wang Xian frowned. He walked to Tang Yinshuan and placed his arm on her back. Marine dragon energy streamed in. Boom! For a moment, intense and high-class energy was injected into Tang Yinshuan's body. She made a breakthrough immediately since she was already at the peak of her level. Vague water flowed and circulated in her body rapidly. Thank you. She opened her eyes with a glimmer of excitement. She tilted her head slightly and thanked Wang Xian with a beaming face. You're welcome. I just want to find the killer as soon as possible. Wang Xian shook his head gently. Me too. Cold radiance flicked in Tang Yinshuan's eyes. After all, the target was her. I'll display all my power at tomorrow's concert. I'm sure they won't be able to sit around after that. Tang Yinshuan regained her aloof look as though nothing could affect her. Her personality was as calm as a mill pond. Well, don't worry. You will be all right even if your enemy is an inborn expert. Wang Xian nodded. Thank you once again, Miracle Dr. Wang. Chapter 278. Draw the Snake Out of the Hole. A shocking scene appeared in the 80,000-person stadium in Lian City. A beautiful girl was on the stage and singing in a soft and alluring voice. Fair and slender fingers were playing on the zither while a heart-touching voice resounded throughout the entire stadium. Several tens of thousands of people stood in the spectator zone silently. They were completely engrossed in the beautiful voice and music. In a corner of the spectator zone, a few people looked in shock at the stage. The music covers 1,000 meters and is soothing the souls of everyone. There's also water spiritual energy gathering in the atmosphere. Half-step to Inborn. She has reached the half-step to Inborn realm. This is bad. Things are getting complicated. Tang Yinshuan has reached the half-step to Inborn realm, but Missy hasn't. There's only a month left. Now that Tang Yinshuan has 2 Inborn experts protecting her, we would need at least 500 spiritual stones to hire the Dark Conjurer to assassinate her. That's going to cost us 500 spiritual stones. Let's get back and look through our plans again. Missy must become the saintess no matter what, and we can't tolerate any mistakes. A few people whispered softly among themselves before leaving silently. In a stadium of several tens of thousands of people, no one had noticed their departure. Wang Xian stood backstage and was watching the performance by Tang Yinshuan. A smile was revealed on his face. This is what a real singer should be. Her voice is beautiful and she's at the level of a master in zither. If she was to cry with this voice, hee. Wang Xian couldn't help but think licentiously for a moment, following which, he revealed a light smile. Soon, the concert ended after more than an hour. Tang Yinshuan returned backstage, smiling radiantly. Any strong martial artist would be able to tell my current cultivation level. If they are going to make a move, they would likely do so in the next few days. Tang Yinxian smiled and said, "Thank you." Wang Xian nodded his head at her. "Yinxian, your performance was perfect. It is simply stunning and more successful than your previous concerts. Oh my God, you are like a goddess on the stage that captures the hearts of your crowd. I believe that your fame will greatly increase after this concert." At this moment, the manager of Tang Yinxian walked in and complimented her. Upon hearing the compliments, Tang Yinxian didn't smile at all. She looked plainly at her manager and said, "This will be my last concert. I won't be appearing in front of the public anymore." "What? Yinxian? What are you saying? Please don't joke about this." The young man was flabbergasted upon hearing her and remarked hurriedly, "All right, from now on, you aren't my manager." Tang Yinxian shook her head at him. Becoming a star was just a trial for herself. It was to train her to stand in front of an audience of over 10,000 while honing her zither skills and strength. Now that her goals were reached, she naturally wouldn't continue being a singer. The young man's face sank. However, he knew that Tang Yinxian would not change a decision she had made. "I'll be staying around Lian City for the next 2 days. I believe they will strike within the next 2 days if they are going to do something." Tang Yinxian ignored the young man, looking at Wang Xian as she spoke. "All right. In that case, we shall stay in Lian City for 2 more days." Wang Xian nodded his head. Lianfeng Lake was a well-known scenic location in Lian City. It was a lake that spanned several dozens of meters and flowed through 10 huge mountains. There was a trekking path on the mountains, and one could reach the peak by taking it. There was also a shallow water stream below the peak with beautiful scenery. As it wasn't a holiday, there weren't many people on it. Wang Xian, Mo Qinglong, and Mo Yuan arrived at the location below the peak with Tang Yinxian. The place was a little deserted and had a few benches along the way. Therefore, the group went over to take a seat. Tang Yinxian placed her zither on a stone table and took a look at Wang Xian, who was beside her. "Miracle Dr. Wang, I had not expected you to be a cultivator with water attribute. I believe your strength must be at least at the level of Inborn realm." Tang Yinxian commented curiously. She was 30 years old this year, and her cultivation level had finally reached the half-step to Inborn realm. Even when compared to her peers in the sacred sects, she could be considered one of the most outstanding disciples. However, Wang Xian had not only attained the 8th rank on the domestic miracle doctor's chart, but had also reached the Inborn realm by the age of 20. Such talents were exceptional and rarely seen. This made her a little curious about him. Wang Xian shook his head, smiled, and replied, "Nope, I'm only level 7 currently." "Level 7 martial artist?" Tang Yinxian was taken aback and wasn't convinced. From what he had demonstrated the previous day, how could he only be level 7? However, she soon recalled that some miracle doctors had extraordinary means. Therefore, she simply nodded her head. "If there are really assassins later, Miracle Dr. Wang, you've got to be careful." Tang Yinxian took a glance at Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan before reminding Wang Xian with a smile. "Rest assured, it won't be a problem. The 2 of them can go against 4 or 5 inborn experts at the same time." Wang Xian smiled and didn't divulge his true strength. Moreover, his current level was indeed still just 7. Time passed gradually, and it was noontime soon. The group got some fish from the stream and was roasting them. Tang Yinxian was chatting with Wang Xian until noon. Pleasing music sounded from below the mountain peak. Wang Xian sat by the side, smiling and watching the beautiful girl in front of him playing the zither. Tang Yinxian smiled back at him. The sound of water flowing formed a perfect melody with the music from the zither. Hearing the perfect melody, one's mood instantly improved. Hee, how fearless is she to be playing her zither leisurely in this place. She must be emboldened by the fact that she has 2 inborn experts as bodyguards. After all, that's quite an impressive lineup. The sun is setting and the mountain peak is dyed blood red from the sun rays. Let's make the red a little brighter with their blood. At this moment, 8 people stood at the peak and edge of the mountain, looking at the 4 miniature figures below them while conversing casually. 2 inborn experts. He, leave the 2 inborn experts to the 4 of us. The 4 of you shall go and slay Tang Yinxian. Once you guys have killed her, we will leave immediately. As for the 3rd person, just kill him if he doesn't know what's good for him, said an old man with a faint smile. On his arm, a centipede that was approximately 20 centimeters long was crawling constantly. 500 spiritual stones. It is worth the time and effort for the 4 of us to strike. An extremely ugly old man lowered his stance slowly. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Weird sounds came from all directions, and one could see countless poisonous bugs appearing in the surroundings. There were lots of poisonous bugs as they filled the area. Spiders, scorpions, centipedes, crickets. Hee, surround them and let the hunting begins. An old man let out a heart-wrenching cry, and countless snakes charged down the peak at an astonishing speed. The 8 people at the peak of the mountain leaped into the air at the same time, seemingly unconcerned by the fact that they were on the peak more than 100 meters high. Below the peak, Wang Xian, who was watching Tang Yinxian play the zither, sensed something and immediately looked up. Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan stood up, lifted their heads and squinted their eyes. Tang Yinxian stopped playing her zither abruptly as her expression turned cold. Is it them? Wang Xian asked Tang Yinxian. From their clothing, it looks like them. However, I'm not entirely sure. Tang Yinxian looked at the 8 people pouncing towards them and was instantly shocked. This is bad. They have 4 inborn experts. Chapter 279. Killing an inborn expert with a single palm strike. 1. Looking at the 4 nimble elders, there was a huge change in Tang Yinxian's facial expression, which began to look awful. Little did I expect 4 inborns from the other party to deal with me. This, Tang Yinxian uttered in disbelief, for these were 4 inborns. To her, to have 3 inborn experts coming was itself an overstatement, given their status. It was the norm to have 2 inborns followed by a group of 7 to 8 half-step inborns. Just 2 of her top-notch bodyguards handling a couple of the inborn experts would have more than sufficed. Yet, they were now faced with 4 inborn experts with another 4 half-step inborns. This had far exceeded her expectations. Who is it, paying such a huge price just to have me killed? Tang Yinxian wondered with a tinge of paleness across her face. Given the situation up front, there was no doubt about the impending danger. Miracle Dr. Wang, we'd better make our escape now, Tang Yinxian shrieked in panic. The assassins sent by the opponent were indeed beyond her expectations. Trying to escape? TSK. Can you now? The elder smirked. With one swift leap, he hopped onto the water's surface in front. He gradually lowered himself upon touching the surface. Venomous snakes slithered out from his sleeves, slowly hissing and slithering their jet-black bodies into the water. Heads raised and tongues sticking out, the snakes peered at Wang Xian and the gang with ice-cold stares. More than a score of snakes had slithered out from the sleeves. It was terrifying to think that an elder had that many snakes hidden on him. Tang Yinxian, targeted by us dark conjurers. Scram now should you 3 want to live. Otherwise, we'll kill all of you, the hideous elder told Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan while standing in front of them. Smack, smack, smack. While the 2 elders spoke, a group of 8 surrounded the trio, eyeing them coldly. You're the same group that tried to assassinate us previously, Tang Yinxian blurted out. Her face had gone a tad paler as she gripped onto her zither. Huh, your bodyguards back then were pretty good, causing serious injury to 2 of our dark conjurers. But you won't be so lucky today, young lass, said the elder with no intention to hide anything, while standing atop the water's surface. To them, no concealment was necessary, for it already appeared to be mission accomplished this time. Such was the confidence of the experts, which was also owing to the prowess of the dark conjurers. Dark Conjurer, Mo Qingling and Mo Yuan muttered as they swept their gazes across the 4 inborn experts coldly, their eyes slightly squinted. Dark Conjurers, renowned for half a century, were amongst the apex of assassination groups in the underworld. The group had tried to assassinate experts from the sacred sect in several attempts. They even managed to silence a sacred sect elder once. The same scared sect had once made an order to kill, vowing to annihilate the Dark Conjurers, which ended up having been in vain, for they had no clue as to the whereabouts of the Dark Conjurers' hideout. Since then, the fame of the Dark Conjurers had spread far and wide. Only the hidden assassins could be considered on par with them. The audacity to kill my dragon sect disciples. I shall annihilate you, Dark Conjurers, Imo Qinglong hollered as he turned his gaze towards the elder. His eyes were overwhelmed with a murderous look. Dare you to retaliate? The elder challenged. This is interesting, Imo Qinglong rebutted. Kill them all, ordered the elder. With a shift, the few Inborn experts lunged directly towards Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan. With not a word further, the killings came down swift and decisive as expected of assassins. What's more, these were explicit attempts made by powerful assassins. All of you shall die, roared the duo. With one shrug, an immense demonic aura oozed out of both Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan, rampaging above their heads like an evil dragon. Their arms were slowly covered by scales, piece by piece. They resembled the arms of a wild beast. Boom! Emboldened in a powerful stance, the duo pounced straight for the 4 Inborn experts with swirling devilish aura. Oh, such a formidable stance, the 4 Dark Conjurers yelped. Their faces grew heavy at the sight of the duo's stance, slightly taken aback. The 4 of you, kill Tang Yinxian, ordered one of the Dark Conjurers, who proceeded straight for Imo Qinglong following one swift move. Venomous worms spilled out from under his feet and followed in his attack. Claws of the Devil Dragon, Imo Qinglong roared. Looking on coldly, Imo Qinglong extended his arms. The devilish aura scampered from above his head and wrapped itself around his arms. A dragon's claw 2 meters long was formed, and it began to attack. Slaughter, the elder ordered. With the twitch of an arm, a bone blade appeared, which he aimed straight at Imo Qinglong. Below him, venomous worms leaped in masses. They aimed straight at Imo Qinglong for a bite. However, within 2 meters from Imo Qinglong, all the worms began to twitch and shiver. They sprawled on the ground, not daring to move. As Imo Qinglong swept his claws of the devil dragon across, the look on the Dark Conjurer's face changed drastically. He retreated meters back. Pinnacle Inborn. He is an expert of the Pinnacle Inborn, one Dark Conjurer yelled. Join attack, another shouted, and together, the 2 sieged an attack at Imo Qinglong. Meanwhile, another 2 went straight for Imo Yuan. Just the 2 of you? Imo Qinglong said smugly. As he lifted his head slightly, bouts of devilish aura circled and eyed the 2, overwhelmed with an urge to kill. The audacity of them to kill members of the dragon sect, for that they shall be annihilated. How formidable! Tang Yinxian glanced over at Imo Qinglong in shock. Yet, upon seeing the 4 Inborns as they made their attack on her, a subtle change of expression flicked across her face. She strummed her zither gently. Once the zither was suspended in midair, Tang Yinxian began strumming rapidly. The melody from the zither switched from its usual light-hearted tune to that of one filled with chill and bloodthirst. Like a thunderstorm, it plucked at heartstrings and pricked at the core. Stay right behind me, Miracle Dr. Wang. I'll deal with them, Tang Yinxian said to Wang Xian with a heavy look. Zoom, zoom. Streaks of water began to form above the tune before transforming almost immediately into 4 sharp arrows. They darted straight for the 4 half-step Inborns. After the arrows were formed, Tang Yinxian strummed again. Voom, voom, voom. Suddenly, ice needles formed from the water appeared alongside the 4 dark conjurers, surging past. Such a powerful melody, no doubt a disciple under the heavenly sound sect. A target worthy of so many top assassins from us, the quartet claimed. They were slightly surprised upon seeing the attack, but managed to recover quickly with smiles. A greenhorn in the world of the half-step Inborns, regardless of power, shall die, they smirked. Piercing daggers held by the quartet sliced through the ice pricks before coming straight for Tang Yinxian. Such speed, Tang Yinxian said, and closed her eyes briefly as they narrowed involuntarily. Swish, swoosh. Eerily, water from the stream behind her began ascending towards the sky. Oh no, Tang Yinxian exclaimed. It was at this instant that the black snakes hopped into the water streaks. It forced Tang Yinxian to open her eyes instantly, where a tinge of embarrassment had flashed across. Ding! With the flick of her finger, a water streak transformed into a sword and cut straight at the snakes behind her. Then came another ambush from the back. Oomph! Meet your doom, the 4 dark conjurers claimed. In an instant, they snuck like ghosts and shot over with their piercing daggers. Chapter 280. Killing an Inborn expert with a single palm strike. 2. Heavenly sound acute strike. Seeing 4 assassins approaching her, perspiration broke out on Tang Yinxian's beautiful face. Her fingers moved quickly on the zither and dense water attribute energy shot out like a waterfall. Ding! Shit! Suddenly, Tang Yinxian was shocked to notice that a string on her zither broke. She slammed both of her hands heavily on the zither, and a dense layer of water appeared in front of her. The layer of water that spanned 5 to 6 meters and possessed immense energy swept towards the 4 approaching assassins. Ha! There's a saying in Heavenly Sound Sect that goes, one perishes or thrives with his instrument. What an apt saying. When the 4 half-step to Inborn experts saw the string on Tang Yinxian's zither break, they smiled with bloodthirst. The 4 assassins waved their daggers heavily. Dazzling glow shot out from the daggers and split the layer of water. Bam! Crack, crack, crack. The 4 daggers landed on the zither, breaking it. Cracking sounds broke out. Let's go. Seeing her broken zither, tears welled up in Tang Yinxian's eyes. Nonetheless, she turned around rapidly and, to the astonishment of Wang Xian, carried him up and fled in the opposite direction. Wang Xian was shocked to be carried by a beautiful girl. Picking up the scent of Tang Yinxian, Wang Xian was slightly embarrassed. He had wanted to make his move previously. However, he had not expected Tang Yinxian to carry him away. Do I need a woman to protect me? Wang Xian was speechless. However, he felt a little apologetic when looking at Tang Yinxian. She chose to carry him away while sacrificing her beloved zither. This made Wang Xian a little touched. Escape? If you can escape from the hands of us, the Dark Conjurers, we wouldn't be known as the Dark Conjurers. An arrogant voice propagated, and soon, for hidden weapons shot towards them. Shit, hidden weapons. Tang Yinxian was shocked. She immediately stopped in her tracks and dodged the hidden weapons by landing on the water surface. She had Wang Xian carried in one hand as she was worried he would fall into the water. As she turned around, her face turned as white as a sheet as she saw the 4 assassins approaching. Pa. The 4 assassins surrounded Tang Yinxian and stared mercilessly at her. Escape? You've got to ask if we, the Dark Conjurers, agree to it. The 4 assassins said mockingly while staring at her. It's over. Tang Yinxian's pale face stared intensely at the 4 half-step to Inborn experts from the Dark Conjurers. She turned her head to Wang Xian and remarked with a bitter expression, I'm sorry. I had not expected these assassins to be this strong. Sorry for implicating you in this. Seeing her apologizing to him, Wang Xian shook his head in embarrassment. Luring the culprits out was his request, and now they were stuck in such a situation. Wang Xian felt that he had gone overboard by acting weak. It's all right. We will be fine too. Wang Xian smiled plainly at Tang Yinxian before scanning across the 4 half-step to Inborn experts from the Dark Conjurers. Tang Yinxian was confused to see Wang Xian smiling. However, Wang Xian's voice sounded at this moment and disrupted her thoughts. Although my strength is that of level 7, killing them is still an easy task for me. As she heard Wang Xian's response, she saw Wang Xian smiling at her. Arg! For cries sounded around her. Tang Yinxian was astounded as she looked around her immediately. Her eyes popped wide open as she looked on in disbelief. The 4 half-step to Inborn experts were being held by water streams. Horror filled their faces as they desperately tried to break free with all their strength. However, their attempts were futile and their bodies sank below the water's surface. Their eyes were filled with desolation and horror as they slowly sank below the surface. "Sink," said Wang Xian lightheartedly. "Cough, cough. How is this possible?" The 4 assassins' eyes widened as their bodies sank gradually towards the bottom of the waterbed. "You!" Tang Yinxian turned her head around immediately and stared at Wang Xian in awe. Feeling her arms still wrapped around his body, Tang Yinxian immediately let go. "Hee, I wanted to make a move previously, but you?" Suddenly, Wang Xian shrugged his shoulders as he saw the expression on Tang Yinxian changing and her eyes shimmering. "Why didn't you make a move earlier?" "SK." Tang Yinxian sneered, turned around and dashed for the shore rapidly. A poisonous snake attempted to bite her, but was sent flying away with a wave and died horribly. When she reached the shore and saw the zither that had cracked, she took a deep breath, slowly lowering her body and looking desolate. She picked the pieces up one after another. Wang Xian smiled bitterly and looked at the battle between Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan, and the other 4 assassins. A cold, murderous light flashed in his eyes. Mo Qinglong was pinning down 2 inborn experts. He was just like a devil dragon in human form as he swung his dragon claw around. The 2 experts from the Dark Conjurer battling him looked wretched. On the floor, the poisonous bugs weren't moving at all. Some were dead while others were shivering in fear. "Finish that guy quickly and help us out." That ugly old man was trying to defend himself bitterly as he shouted to the 2 experts from the Dark Conjurers fighting with Mo Yuan. Damn it! The other 2 experts from the Dark Conjurers were engaged in a bitter battle too. Although they had the upper hand against Mo Yuan's horrifying physical body didn't allow them to take advantage at all. It would be extremely hard for them to defeat Mo Yuan. How could they be so strong? The 4 experts from the Dark Conjurers thought to themselves bitterly. They were planning to flee the moment Tang Yinxian was killed. "You shall pay with your lives for killing the people from our dragon sect. We will definitely eradicate the Dark Conjurer." "Eradicate!" Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan shouted in unison as they launched a fearsome barrage of attacks. "I'll definitely eradicate the Dark Conjurers." Wang Xian walked over and locked onto the 4 inborn experts from the Dark Conjurers. The next moment, he struck. "Shit, where are Ying and the rest?" When the old man that was engaged in an intense battle with Mo Yuan saw Wang Xian attacking him, he was shocked. A bad feeling welled up in him. "Just a brat, and you're thinking of interfering. Let me kill you first." The old man broke free from his battle with Mo Yuan instantly. Moving like a phantom, he attacked Wang Xian. Bam! As an assassin, his movement techniques and speed were definitely top class. The old man was extremely fast as he attacked Wang Xian. However, the speed he was knocked back at was also very fast. It was as though he was hit by a cruising airplane. A black figure was knocked back. Bam! The body of the old man was entrenched into the mountain directly, his eyes still opened wide and filled with disbelief. What? The other 3 old men from the Dark Conjurers were completely dumbfounded as they looked across. They saw that young man brushing off the dust from his hands casually, killing an inborn expert with a single strike. This, a short distance away, Tang Yinxian, who was picking up the pieces of her broken zither, saw it too. Her eyes opened wide and were filled with astonishment. She wasn't as composed and calm as she used to be at all. This rascal. Chapter 281. Crush the Dark Conjurer with the Abyss. 1. Finding it hard to believe, Tang Yinxian gritted her teeth in anger. How could this fellow have not taken a strike, given his incredulous powers? The fight would have ended long ago had he done so. Moreover, as she looked at her zither, she felt more enraged. To the Heavenly Sound Sect, The destinies of the zither and its owner are intertwined. To make matters worse, this zither had been gifted to her by her mother. Although this zither was no longer on par with her standards, she could not bear to have it replaced. In the absence of her mother, the zither helped to alleviate some of her longings. But now, the zither had been ruined. How is this possible? Just how could this be? The three dark conjurers fighting with Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan shrieked in astonishment. Fixing their gaze at Wang Xian in disbelief, their faces changed drastically. All followers of the dark conjurers shall die, Wang Xian proclaimed. Despite his somber expression, he let out a glimpse of a smile. Since it was an assassination group that had murdered Imo Ersan and Imo Sanyi, they shall be annihilated. Spare one, so we can find out about the Dark Conjurer's hideout, Wang Xian said dully. Trying to locate our base? Dream on. You're never going to find it, even at the cost of our lives. The hideous elder snapped with a grimace. His body was showing patches of crimson, to which all surrounding venomous worms were drawn to him. As they flew over, they attached themselves onto his body. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The worms penetrated through his skin and into his body, forming patches of blood pus. The fact that they came in shades and hues made them appear all the more grotesque. We will seek revenge for us dark conjurers. All of you shall perish, including your loved ones, said the nasty-faced elder. Meanwhile, the attire on him started to melt rapidly as it gave off buzzing sounds. A foul smell, with a mix of stale blood and whiffs of venomous liquids, was emitted from his body. Soon enough, a monster-like creature emerged right before their eyes. With a swerve, the monster lashed directly for Imo Yuan. Run! Two dark conjurer experts shouted, a drastic change of expression striking across their faces. With a swift turn, they tried escaping to further grounds. Trying to escape? Can you? Imo Qinglong challenged them as he gave chase. Venomous creature? Imo Yuan quizzed. He looked on coldly as the monster approached, about to attack. As a member of the bloodline of the divine dragon, and one who practiced the devil powers, he showed no fear in the face of venom. How disgusting! Wang Xian yelled, as he looked at the creature, which was oozing with the corpse fluid of venomous worms. He flanked his arm. Streaks of water flowed from the riverbank and gathered over to his side. Seizing the opportunity, Imo Yuan swept his dragon's claw past and smashed the claw into pieces. Following the attack, Imo Yuan shifted his stance and chased after the two dark conjurer experts with lightning speed. Given the capabilities of Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan, it took them little effort to apprehend the duo who were seriously battered. Bam! Appalled, the two elders were flung onto the ground, faces overwhelmed by pain and despair. Raising their heads, they saw Wang Xian and the others approaching, and greeted them with grimaces. Never in their wildest dreams had they expected to fail this mission. Prior to this attempt, it had appeared to them that nothing would go wrong, having dispatched 4 inborn experts. Nonetheless, they still failed. On the other hand, killing them appeared so effortless thanks to the existence of this formidable trio. From what they could recall, the only time they'd had to face such formidable experts was more than a decade earlier, during which the sacred sect had sent out orders to exterminate the dark conjurers. The entire sacred sect was deployed, and it was only then that the dark conjurers felt a looming sense of crisis. Yet, this trio had given them the same impression this time round. Force it out of them. Make them spill out about the dark conjurer's hideout, Wang Xian told Imo Qinglong as they stood beside one another. Yes, young master, replied Imo Qinglong while nodding. Slowly, he walked over to one of the dark conjurer experts and stared coldly in his face. Huh, trying to make us spill on our hideout? Dream on. The two elders snapped. They glared on, eyes filled with bloodthirst, and as they turned, they were ready to end their own lives. Bang! With quick reflexes, Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan reacted swiftly. Kicking at one of the elders' elixir fields, they managed to stop them from attempting suicide. After all, they had been trained assassins. Trying to end your life? How could we let you have it that easy? Imo Qinglong snorted with a dismissive face. Ha, ha, laughed the two dark conjurer elders. Despite looking miserable, their gaze remained prickly cold. Extreme disdain swept past their faces. You won't get any information from us. Not even the sacred sect could manage. What's more, you people amongst all, asked the two elders. Seems like there has been some serious brainwashing going on for these dark conjurers. Imo Qinglong responded, slightly embarrassed. With a fling of his arm, he emitted a bout of devilish aura. The aura circled the duo's noses, eyes, and ears, before making its way into their bodies and entering their minds. In an instant, the duo went into a daze, appearing as though their minds had gone blank. Out with it. Reveal your hideout, Imo Qinglong questioned flatly. Ha ha, ah. The two elders laughed goofily. Suddenly, this was followed by a loud cry. This made Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan uneasy. Just kill them, Wang Xian replied, jaded. Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan nodded as they looked on awkwardly. Little wonder why they remained in existence, despite the sacred sect issuing the order to kill. Each member of the Dark Conjurers has been hypnotized with a mental block. There's simply no way of learning about their base from them, they said in realization. That remains to be seen, Wang Xian interrupted. Looking towards the river flow, he spotted a few of the black, venomous snakes and peered at them coldly. Oh, do you have a plan in mind, young master? Imo Qinglong asked, somewhat stunned by the remark. There's a way, Wang Xian answered with a faint smile. He wanted to achieve what the sacred sect could not. This time, we'll wipe out the Dark Conjurers. We'll get a hold of the one who gave the order to kill us and get rid of them altogether. Wang Xian proclaimed placidly. As he did so, he stretched his arm out slightly, pointing in the direction of the river flow. Instantaneously, the snakes shivered. As they lowered their heads, they swam towards Wang Xian, cowered in fear. TSK, 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 TSK. 3 snakes hissed as they lay beneath his feet, overwhelmed by fright. You happen to know where the Dark Conjurers are hiding? Wang Xian asked the snakes composedly. Meanwhile, a message was being transmitted into their brains. While the snakes were not bright creatures, they still knew a thing or two to say the least. The 3 snakes nodded their heads, as if in response. Good, Wang Xian returned with a toned smile. While the Dark Conjurers could induce a mental block on their assassins, they could not do the same on snakes. Never would the Dark Conjurers have expected that as a divine dragon, Wang Xian could command other living creatures, even understanding them in their language. Prowess of the divine dragon rules the entire animal kingdom indeed. Oldemo, summon those dragonians from the abyss as well. We should challenge those seniors since they too have founded a similar group. Let's see if we can pick up some of their skills. Wang Xian instructed Imo Qinglong as he broke out in a radiant smile. Yes, young master. We'll contact the abyss right away, Imo Qinglong answered while nodding. To think that these 7 founded the abyss without a single henchman. How absurd. He chuckled. Let them be. The abyss doesn't need much manpower anyway, so long as they're able to helm control over the world. Wang Xian laughed back. With the abyss, we shall crush the Dark Conjurers. Chapter 282. Crush the Dark Conjurers with the Abyss, 2. Tangyin Xian, for the next month, let me arrange a safe place for you. We have some matters to attend to. Walking back from Lianfeng Lake, Wang Xian looked at Tangyin Xian, who was hugging her broken zither, and spoke to her awkwardly. It's all right. I'll go back to my sect. I will be extremely safe there. Tangyin Xian took a glance at him and soon turned her head back. I'll tell my father that your mission has been completed. Wang Xian nodded his head, and the group found a hotel within the city center. On the second day, the 4 of them took a plane to Ning City. This was the sacred ground of the Heavenly Sound Sect. Having sent Tang Yixian safely into her sect, Wang Xian looked at Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan and asked, have they arrived? They are all waiting at the Dongling Mountain Range, answered Imo Qinglong as he nodded his head. Dongling Mountain Range was the largest mountain range in the country and spanned over 1,000 kilometers with a width reaching 200 to 300 kilometers. It was also the largest primitive mountain forest in the country. Within this primitive mountain range, there were various kinds of wild animals and a Dongling River that was several hundreds of kilometers long. Famous mountains and huge streams were known to be the breeding ground for monsters. At the edge of the Dongling Mountain Range, Wang Xian, Imo Qinglong, and Imo Yuan approached rapidly. There were few people in this area and they were surrounded by pine trees, red spruce trees, white birch trees, poplar trees, and many other kinds of plants. Every single tree was huge and over 10 meters tall. Between the trees, there was a small path that led to the mountain ranges. At this moment, barely anyone was using the path. Young master, they are in one of the mountain peaks ahead. Imo Qinglong pointed to the highest mountain peak in front of him. Wang Xian nodded his head. Moving off, he was like a huge rock spreading his wings as he leaped several tens of meters in a single jump. Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan followed closely behind him. Dragon King. At the peak of one of the mountains, 7 figures in black attire stood on 7 different trees. Seeing that Wang Xian had arrived, the 7 of them immediately went on their knees. Not bad. Wang Xian scanned across the 7 people and revealed a smile. Among the 7 people, 3 of them had reached the half-step to Inborn realm while the other 4 were level 9 martial artists. This was a remarkable improvement. Let's go to the nest of the dark conjurers, Wang Xian said to the 7 people. Yes, Dragon King. The 7 people lifted their heads. To Wang Xian's surprise, all of them put on masks. They were masks made of metal with the design of a horrifying and savage devil. At the location of the forehead on the masks, there was the word kill in red. The mask together with their black attire made them look extremely dangerous. That's pretty cool. Wang Xian smiled as he looked at the 7 stunning masks. Dragon King, we have a few more here. A Dragonian took out 3 more masks and passed them to Wang Xian, Imo Qinglong, and Imo Yuan respectively. Haha, just right. 10 of us. Wang Xian laughed as he put on the Abyss mask. The mask felt a little cold but was comfortable. It also didn't affect one's breathing and speech. Wang Xian didn't know what material it was made of. Together with the black casual sports attire he was wearing today, it was quite a good match. Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan also received the masks and wore them. In that instant, a faint, silent killing aura surrounded the group. Let's go. Moving his arm, a black poisonous snake appeared on Wang Xian's hand. The head of the poisonous snake pointed in a certain direction. The 10 of them moved rapidly as they pivoted off the mountain peaks that were 500 to 600 meters tall. They were just like figures in mythology who could cover several tens of meters with a single leap. What a majestic view! Wang Xian landed on the tip of a tree on the mountain peak as he looked around and was slightly shocked by the scene. Within the primitive mountain ranges, there were wild boars, rabbits, chickens, and all kinds of animals running around. As the poisonous snake did not have its intelligence manifested, it couldn't express an exact location. Therefore, the group could only search for the location. Nonetheless, their speed was incredibly fast. When moving at full speed, they could reach 100 kilometers an hour. Splash! After moving through the mountain ranges for 4 hours, a huge waterfall appeared in their sight. Below it was a huge river. This must be the Dongling River, Wang Xian thought to himself before taking a glance at the surroundings. Let's take a break here. Go get some wild animals to eat. Yes, Dragon King. The Dragonians nodded their heads and dispersed to the surroundings to look for food. Wang Xian walked to the edge of the river and looked at the waterfall. Soon, the Dragonians returned with wild chickens, rabbits, and some fish. Wang Xian opened his mouth, took out the Dragon Ball, and placed it on the floor like a piece of roasting equipment. The wild animals were delicious and more fragrant than typical meals. The aroma of the meat could whet one's appetite. Wang Xian sat on a stone bench while observing the surroundings with a faint smile. Rattle, rattle, rattle. There's water ahead. We finally found a water source. This mountain is really dirty. Wash up and let's have lunch. I wonder if we could find that spiritual treasure. There are people here. At this moment, a group of over a dozen people walked out from the forest. The group was made up of men of different ages. They had uniform-style longswords in their hands, and everyone wore identical yellow attire. The group walked out from the forest of the mountain and looked inquisitively at Wang Xian's group. When their eyes fell on the masks on their faces, they were baffled. What a strange group of people. They are most likely martial artists. They whispered softly among themselves and headed towards where the river was. Xiao Yuan, get a few people with you to hunt some wild animals and start a fire here. We will be taking a break. A middle-aged man instructed a few young men. Yes, master. The group of young men nodded their heads before dispersing. Some went into the forest while others went into the river to catch fish. I guess they are here to capture that spiritual animal too. It seems like there will be several sects and families who will be here. The middle-aged man took a glance at where Wang Xian and the group were before whispering to the two old men beside him. Hee, we certainly must get the spiritual animals. Within this vast mountain range, there are really lots of treasures. An old man commented confidently as he observed the surroundings. The middle-aged man beside him smiled and revealed an equally confident look. Wandong, come over. Lend me your sword to start a fire. Beside them, a young man shouted at the other man. Don't use my sword. We can just start a flame by getting a spark from the others. That young man pouted and directed his eyes at Wang Xian and the crowd. All of them are wearing masks and are likely not very sociable. The young man saw Wang Xian's group wearing masks and reminded softly. Haha, we are just getting a spark from them. Moreover, they have to remove the masks at some point to eat. Otherwise, they will have to tear their food into shreds before eating. The young man chuckled and walked towards Wang Xian directly. Chapter 283. Crush the Dark Conjurer with the Abyss. 3. Gentlemen, could you spare us a fire to start ours? A young man said to Wang Xian and the gang as he approached. But soon enough, he was stunned by the sight of the dragon ball on the ground. Emitting a gentle flame, the dragon ball helped to roast the peasants and hare caught in the wild. Gentlemen, this fire starter of yours, what is it? The young man asked as he expressed his shock. There's no fire to lend. Off you go. A dragonian replied to the young man apathetically as he raised his head. Donning a face mask from the abyss and speaking indifferently, the dragonian appeared strikingly aloof. As he saw the dragonian's icy gaze, the young man turned and stepped away. Just say so if you don't wish to spare. No need to say there's none when it's just right there. The young man pouted. When he returned, he was received by another young man in sarcasm. Aha, why did you fail? Like I said, one look and you can tell that group of men is difficult to get along with, the latter remarked snidely. Humph, just a few who can't even show their faces. What's so great about them? The young man complained in resentment. Though I have to admit, their fire starter looks pretty amazing. It's a bead colored bright crimson, and the bead emits fiery red flames from the top. The young man continued. A flame bead? This fellow asked with a face full of doubt, slightly taken by surprise. To which, the young man replied, yeah, a bead. One which emits streaks of flames from the top. A bead? Came a questioning voice. The conversation between the young men was overheard by several middle-aged elders nearby. Astounded, one of the elders sporting crimson hair began to shift his gaze. He looked over in the direction where Wang Xian and the gang were. When he spotted the dragon ball on the ground, a glow flickered over his eyes as they narrowed. What is it, old Hua? A one-eyed elder asked. He had a look of doubt on his face, as if sensing something amiss. That's a flame bead, the red-haired elder exclaimed while turning his head. As he said so, his eyes squinted into a deep gaze. Flame bead? Huh? That's a spiritual treasure of the fire element, the one-eyed elder said in response. To think that they're using such a gem to feed a fire. What a waste. The red-haired elder continued. to which all the middle-aged elders sitting around turned their heads and looked over with sparkling eyes. Every spiritual treasure has its strengths. Those of exceptional powers can even help their owner challenge someone to a class-superseding fight. The crowd fixed their gaze on the spiritual treasure, which was sustaining the fire with a glow in their eyes. After exchanging glances, the elders said, "Come on," in unison and slowly made their way over. "Greetings, I am Long Wujian from the Guangshan Sword Sect." The red-haired elder introduced himself. While walking over, he eyed Wang Xian and the gang, but his eyes were mainly fixated on the Dragon Ball. "Speak," Mo Yuan answered sparingly. "Everyone, it's a waste to be using this flame bead for a fire. I would like to buy this flame bead with 50 spiritual stones. What do you say?" the elder offered. Although spiritual treasures such as the flame bead and water bead were not exceptionally rare, an ordinary flame bead would have cost anything between 60 to 70 spiritual stones. 50 spiritual stones, as offered by the elder, was a price much lower than usual rates. "No, we're not selling. Leave us alone," Wang Xian rejected outright as he looked over at the five. "Are you not?" the red-haired elder inquired again, completely unaffected by the response. He briefly skimmed past the people around. Stretching his hands, 10 steel beads appeared in each of his palms, each the size of a thumb, which thereafter went straight for Wang Xian and the gang and began to attack. But each one of the steel beads had not struck them at their vital points, which made it obvious that this was merely a test. Bang, bang, bang. A dragonian swung his arm, and the stones lying around began swerving towards the metal beads in counterattack. Scores of stones had managed to intercept the steel beads mid-air. "Eh?" the red-haired elder exhaled. His eyes dimmed wearily, seeing how one person was all it took to intercept the attack by his 10 steel beads. Standing next to the red-haired elder, the one-eyed elder waved his arm at Wang Xian and gang. "Haha, such kung fu skills you have, gentlemen. I'm in awe," he praised. Meanwhile, the one-eyed elder exuded a mild but powerful inborn aura, which could not go unnoticed. "Sorry to have disturbed you, gentlemen," the elder excused himself and gave a wide smile. As he turned around to take his leave, the rest in his company followed quietly and left with glistening eyes. "Huh." A few Dragonians gestured as they eyed the elder and company, before turning towards Wang Xian and the gang. "Kill," Mo Qinglong ordered in a single word when he saw Wang Xian remaining silent. "The masked man who stopped my steel beads earlier. He's rather capable, a half-step inborn expert to say the least. But the abilities of the other 9 are unknown," commented the red-haired elder. "We'd better not antagonize them since we don't know what they're capable of," the others chipped in. "Such a pity, though. I wonder what level that flame bead of theirs is." The group of middle-aged elders trailed off as they went. It was very common for people to kill and loot within these deep mountains and meandering streams. But they were more alert in comparison, having tested the abilities of the other party. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Just then, they heard the sound of stomping coming from behind. The faces of the five intensified, and they turned around immediately. They saw a group of masked men coming straight at them. They were closing in for a fierce attack as ferocity filled their faces. "What?" the elders screeched, mildly shocked. "They have a death wish. How dare they attack us?" hollered the red-haired elder. With an unyielding face, he drew his long sword. "Huh. Do you realize your foolishness for testing an assassin from the abyss earlier?" A Dragonian ridiculed unsparingly. As bloodthirst filled their eyes, the Dragonians charged directly at the elders. Mo Yuan too made his move, and he targeted straight for the one-eyed inborn elder, whereas the other 3 half-step inborns focused on the red-haired elder. After all, Mo Yuan was an inborn expert as well. "Assassins from the abyss?" blurted the crowd from Guangshan Sword Sect, slightly startled. Faces dimmed as they drew their swords immediately. "I don't care who you guys are. By attacking us, you're asking for doom," the red-haired elder and one-eyed elder bellowed in unison. In a change of stance, the duo imposed a terrifying inborn aura, which surged ahead toward Mo Yuan's group of 8. "TSK Tisk, I'll send the bunch of you to the abyss," a Dragonian remarked. "Send them to the abyss." The rest of the Dragonians chimed in and charged ahead with bloodthirst. "Send us to the abyss," one of the middle-aged elders mumbled. Little by little, his face was overcome by shock. "You are assassins from the abyss," the elder shrieked in realization. "What? Assassins from the abyss?" 5 elders yelped in a state of panic. Assassins from the abyss, or the abyss in short, was a group of powerful killers that had newly emerged in the underworld. The abyss became known after having wiped out another assassination group within the underworld. In addition, they had risen further in fame when they assassinated an inborn expert from the gambling city within a short time span. This powerful force had made their mark despite its recent establishment. This no doubt made it a force not to be reckoned with. Assassins, one of the most haunting existences in the underworld. Faces on the members from the Guangshan sword sect grew bleak. Never had they expected to incur the wrath of the Abyss assassins with a mere test. As for the assassins, they would show no mercy. Incur their wrath, and endless killing awaits. Chapter 284. Crush the Dark Conjurer with the Abyss, Fore. "I'll send you guys into the abyss." What a catchy slogan. Wang Xian sat by the side and watched the 7 Dragonians chanting the slogan. On his face, a smile was revealed. The 7 Dragonians created the abyss and wore the abyss masks. Together with the slogan of, "I'll send you guys into the abyss," they looked extremely attention-grabbing and cool. He looked plainly at the 7 Dragonians battling the crowd from the Guangshan sword sect. These 5 people from the Guangshan sword sect were rather interesting too. They were probing and trying to find out the strength level of Wang Xian's group initially. When they realized Wang Xian's group were stronger, they immediately wanted to leave. Wang Xian was sure that if the other party found them to be weaker, the other party would definitely kill them and plunder their valuables. A group with no idea of death or dangers. What a stupid way to die. Assassins wouldn't be merciful. When the Guangshan sword sect wanted to probe about their strength level, their outcome had been decided. Shit. Master, elders, and the vice sect leader are fighting with them. At this moment, the disciples from Guangshan sword sect, who were starting the fire and returning from their hunting in the forest, were shocked to see their people engaged in battle. "I'll send you guys into the abyss." That's the slogan of the abyss. Assassins from the abyss. They are assassins from the abyss. How did vice sect leader and our elders offend them? The group of Guangshan sword sect's disciples were flabbergasted. They immediately grabbed their long swords and stared worryingly at the battles. The young man, who had gone to borrow a light, was breaking out in cold sweat. Looking at the group of people in black attire and wearing the abyss masks fighting with his vice sect leader and elders, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Luckily, he had not made rude remarks about them. Otherwise, however, he soon recalled that he seemed to have mocked them previously. Arg! At this moment, 3 cries resounded. The old man with red hair and the old man with a single eye were surprised as they looked to the side immediately. "It's time to enter the abyss." A cold and deep voice sounded as the 3 middle-aged men lay on the floor. Their eyes were wide open and their expressions were filled with disbelief. "Die." The savage-looking masks appeared in front of the old man with red hair and the old men with a single eye. Feeling the powerful and intense attacks, the 2 old men were horrified. Why did we offend them? The despair that originated from the abyss slowly crept upon them. Their eyes were wide open as they narrowly withstood wave after wave of horrifying attacks. Bam! In less than 20 seconds, 2 figures smashed heavily towards the waterfall. Signs of life had completely slipped off their bodies. "Just 2 exploratory inborn experts, and yet you dared to mess with us?" Mo Yuan looked at the corpse being carried away by the waters with contempt before returning to the side of Wang Xian. The other Dragonians also turned their heads over and returned to their initial position. However, one of the Dragonians paused and looked towards that young man. No. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. That young man, who had mocked them previously, was shivering and flustered as he noticed the assassin from the abyss that had easily killed his vice sect leader and elder looking at him. The other disciples of Guangshan's sword sect were also horrified as they stumbled back constantly. Your tongue is a little loose. Let me send you into the abyss. That Dragonian stared at the young man. The next moment, he moved. No, don't. The young man waved the long sword in his hand and was screaming with desperation. Arg! Cough, cough. Soon, the cries died down. He landed on his knees before falling flat. SSS. The Dragonian walked back to his position emotionlessly, ignoring the remaining members of the Guangshan sword sect. The remaining disciples of the Guangshan sword sect were shivering in fear at this moment as they witnessed the development of events. Run, run now. They are the devils of the abyss. The group glanced at the 10 people wearing masks before running away in the opposite direction in horror. We will move out after eating. Wang Xian looked plainly at the corpses around him and didn't say another word. The abyss wasn't the embodiment of justice. If one had no idea of death or danger and offended them, his outcome would be identical to what the 7 Dragonians had said. I'll send you guys into the abyss. Let's go. After finishing the meal, the group dashed towards the depths of Dongling mountain range again. We are almost there. After an hour, Wang Xian slowed down abruptly and spoke to the Dragonians around him. He landed on the peak of a mountain and placed the poisonous snake on the ground. SSS, SSS. The black poisonous snake flicked its tongue out before crawling forward rapidly. Wang Xian and the group followed closely behind. SSS, SSS. Just as the poisonous snake surmounted 3 peaks, it stopped and flicked its tongue out rapidly. Wang Xian and the group who had been following it were taken aback. Ahead of them, countless small poisonous bugs lay on the ground. The black poisonous snake flicked its tongue, and these poisonous bugs seemed to have picked up the scent of their kind as they moved aside and opened a path. Poisonous bug. This mountain has lots of poisonous bugs. Wang Xian squinted his eyes and looked around him. On one of the branches, there was another black poisonous snake resting. If they were careless and were ambushed by it, they would likely die on the spot. On a stone a short distance away, a scorpion lifted its tail up high. A faint green glow was shimmering on its tail. We are likely nearing the nest of the dark conjurers. Wang Xian smiled faintly and commented, the surrounding defenses of the dark conjurers are much stronger than the Flame Palace. Even an inborn expert could fall and lose his life here if he was careless. Wang Xian waved his arms and the grass below the group grew at an astonishing speed. The grass slowly surrounded them and prevented the poisonous bugs from attacking them or leaking the information of their arrival. If the assassins of the dark conjurers could breed such poisonous snakes, these poisonous bugs would definitely be able to tip the dark conjurers off secretly. Their bodies were almost entirely covered in grass as they followed behind the poisonous snake. After surmounting 2 additional mountains, they noticed more and more poisonous animals. In fact, Wang Xian even saw a terrifying poisonous snake that was over 6 meters long. The fangs of that poisonous snake were as huge as a person's fingers and looked horrifying. It would likely be able to kill experts below the Inborn realm. Dangers are really lurking everywhere. Wang Xian observed the surroundings attentively. When they arrived at the peak, a huge mountain valley surfaced in front of him. Within the valley, there was a lake. The lake was connected to the Dongling River. The entire lake within the mountain valley was shrouded in fog. Heavenly rocks were flying over the lake and trees were grown around the lake. It was a majestic view. Who would have expected the center of what the poisonous animals were guarding to be such a beautiful lake? Wang Xian looked down and saw the poisonous snake still crawling quickly. Its target seemed to be the lake in the middle of the valley. Wang Xian wiggled, released himself from the grass that surrounded him, and followed behind the poisonous snake. Gore! Woof woof! At this moment, an angry roar propagated and shook the atmosphere. The surrounding trees rustled from the shockwave. What? Wang Xian was taken aback and looked to his left. Chapter 285, Heavenly Hound. It was a hound, about half a meter long. It had a really long tail, where its yellow fur was especially luscious, extending for scores of centimeters. A patch of fur concentrated on its upper front legs was exceptionally long, measuring up to half a meter. With a full body of thick and rich fur, the hound exuded an overwhelming elegance. Just then, the hound ascended more than 100 meters with one leap, ending up on a tree. Arching its head, the hound roared and howled like a fox, its sharp eyes fixated on what lay behind. Over there! It's over there! The crowd shouted. As Wang Xian looked over, he saw hundreds of men chasing after them. These men were from more than a dozen forces. Amongst them was a group whose attire had a huge Shang character written in the middle. This symbolized the sacred sect, one of the great powers. Meanwhile, this group of men looked terrible. Many of them had even gone stale in the face, aided by others. It was obvious they had been attacked by the venomous objects lurking around. Astonished, Wang Xian looked on. He recalled what was said by members of the Guangshan sword sect in their meeting earlier. They had come to capture the spiritual animal, and it appeared that the hound up front could be it. It was an exceptionally formidable hound, one whose abilities were that of Inborn level, to say the least. Yet, as Wang Xian swept his gaze across the multiple forces, he spotted Inborn experts in every one of them. This made them no less powerful. A young man looked fixated on the majestic hound as it stood atop the tree. He was wearing the attire with a Shang character on it. Still trying to escape? Try that again, and we'll make dog soup out of you once we've got you. The young man boasted with a smug look. An elder skimmed past the various forces. This creature will make a good sacred animal, guarding the doors for us sacred soul sect. Therefore, take your leave, everyone, he claimed squarely. His face exuded an air of dignity, which tolerated no defiance. The able shall own the spiritual creature. Even if a sacred sect is around, we're not going to make wasteful trips. Otherwise, we'll suffer huge losses, another elder retorted in a low pitch. Behind him stood several young men. They had been poisoned, their faces a bluish hue and covered in bandages. That's right, fair competition. Should your sacred sect win by merit, we'll concede defeat wholeheartedly, another elder continued, expression dimmed. Having expended so much effort, the loss incurred would be great should they simply back off. They simply could not take this lying down. As a display of their determination, all the forces remained where they were. While the sacred soul sect poured over the various troops, the faces on their members grew darker. All right then, it's decided, they replied coldly. Charge, capture the heavenly hound, and bring it back to our sect for taming. With the sacred soul sect members nodding resignedly, an elder charged forward. He went straight for the heavenly hound, which stood in front of the lake. Charge, everyone! Charge! Shouted multiple voices while the crowd pressed on. Upon hearing the commotion, Wang Xian questioned, Heavenly Hound? Pondering, he glanced over at the dignified creature. At the same time, he realized that the venomous snake had made its way into the lake. It was swimming towards the lake floor. Wang Xian showed little interest in this heavenly hound. Instead, he went after the snake in a shift of position. Come on, we need to catch up with the snake, he hurried. Yet, as they made their dive and suspended in midair, they were suddenly attacked. Scram! The opponents shouted. Bouts of counterattacks came at Wang Xian and the gang. Don't block our path. We, Sacred Soul Sect, are bent on this heavenly hound, the attackers demanded. As they warned, they continued attacking Wang Xian and the gang. Wang Xian said and squinted his eyes briefly. He paused and landed on the ground immediately. Courting death. Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan snapped. They looked on with savageness in their eyes, as the experts from the Sacred Soul Sect chased after the heavenly hound. They had merely wanted entry into the lake. Yet, they were met with counterattacks and forced to retreat. Make way and scram, you bunch of masked men who can show no face. 3 inborn experts from the Sacred Soul sect darted across the sky. A group of half-step inborns and level 9 martial artists followed closely beneath. They scowled at Wang Xian and gang who were standing in their way. The power and prestige of a sacred sect were obvious to all. Wang Xian knitted his brows. Come on, let's get within the lake first, he continued with glistening eyes. Wang Xian paid no attention to the crowd that had gone all green-eyed as they fought for the heavenly hound. In one move, he dived straight into the lake. Casting one final glance at the disciples from the Sacred Soul sect, Imo Qinglong and the Dragonians followed closely behind Wang Xian. Splash! The group of 10 plunged into the water. A handful of disciples from the Sacred Soul sect stared at Wang Xian and gang, mildly astonished. But they recovered quickly and regained focus on the heavenly hound. Wang Xian and the gang had entered the waters. As Dragonians with the bloodline of the divine dragon, they were able to breathe with complete ease underwater. Even their combat powers would not be the least bit hindered should they battle underwater. Wang Xian was shocked by the snakes as he saw them swimming towards deep waters. Don't tell me the Dark Conjurer's hideout is situated at the floor of this lake? Wang Xian commented. The entire lake measured an area of about 5 square kilometers, making it very large, and the snakes were swimming deep into it. But the snakes had not swum towards the center. Instead, they advanced closer to the direction where a mountain range lay. Huh, that's, Wang Xian exclaimed and narrowed his eyes. Looking ahead, he could see a stone gate standing 3 meters below the lake floor. Behind the stone gate lies the mountain peak. To think that the Dark Conjurers have their hideout located within a mountain peak. What's more, their entrance is located in a lake. How covert. Little wonder why they could not be wiped out by sacred sects, even with full manpower, Wang Xian thought to himself. Peering over at Imo Qinglong and the rest, he signaled to them briefly. The group nodded in acknowledgement and arrived at the stone gate. Wang Xian looked at the stone gate, which was completely sealed. He extended his arm, and gradually his palm turned gold in color. Pat, pat, pat. As he stuck his palm in, it broke the stone gate and forced an opening in the shape of a human silhouette. Shrugging his body once, Wang Xian isolated the lake waters surrounding them. Boom! The stone gate burst open and glowed from its interior. Wang Xian showed himself in. He swung an arm and left the Dragon Ball at the stone gate. As the Dragon Ball glowed with red lights, it prevented the waters from entering. Come on, let's head inside, Wang Xian said to Imo Qinglong and the gang. With no further words, Wang Xian peeked over and headed inside. The entire cave was winding, like a giant staircase, spiraling down as it went. There were no guards standing watch along the walkway. There was no need for them, it seemed, with such an intricate base. They descended along the staircase. When they reached the end of the path, Wang Xian was shocked by the sight ahead of him. Everything was beyond his expectations. In fact, it was way beyond. As it turned out, the Dark Conjurer's hideout was not within the mountain peak, but rather it was beneath the lake. The entire surface above resembled a marine life park. Transparent glass of unique composition was placed right above the hideout. This prevented the lake waters above from seeping in while allowing sunlight to pass through. Within the entire base of the Dark Conjurer's hideout, houses of moderate height sprouted in lines. They looked no different from the housing landscape on the ground above. So that's how it works, Wang Xian exclaimed in gradual realization. The base of the Dark Conjurers is located within the mountain valleys. They had their base built within the mountain valleys, before setting off an explosion at the mountain peak, creating a channel. Linked to the Dongling River, the channel allowed the river waters to enter the region, forming a gigantic lake. A perfect camouflage was thus formed. What a flawless Dark Conjurer's base it is. Chapter 286. I'll send you guys into the abyss. 1. Wang Xian looked ahead. The base under the lake spanned 3 to 4 kilometers. It was just like a small town with some poisonous plants planted around it. In the central location, the words Dark Conjurer were engraved forcefully over the entrance. A blue light shimmered in the eyes of Wang Xian as he looked ahead of him. Huh. However, he spotted two humongous animals resting at the two sides of the entrance. Two huge pythons over 14 to 15 meters lay to the left and right of the entrance. The pure black eyes of the anacondas emitted a soul-wrenching aura. When curled up, they were still 3 to 4 meters tall. Blood Python, Level 10. Extractable Dragon Energy, 15,432. Two Inborn Realm Blood Pythons guarding the door. How extravagant. It seems like the Dark Conjurers are much stronger than the Flame Palace, Wang Xian thought to himself. As one of the top 2 assassin groups in the underworld, the strength of the Dark Conjurers was unquestionable. Wang Xian looked through the entrance and saw assassins living in different rooms. In this place, there were all kinds of equipment. However, the people in it didn't show any emotions on their faces at all. Some assassins were raising different poisonous animals in their rooms, while others were sitting cross-legged in their rooms and cultivating diligently. In the middle of the base, there was a huge training ground. The training ground could be separated into 3 regions. In one of the regions, a group of teenagers were undergoing gruesome and bloody training. All of them looked younger than 20 years old. These teenagers had a savage demeanor. Clearly, they could no longer be seen as innocent teenagers. Addressing them as executioners might be more appropriate. The savage and cold vibes emanating from them indicated that they had definitely killed humans previously. This is what a real assassin group is like, nurturing and training people into killing machines without any personal thoughts. Wang Xian heaved a sigh when he saw the group of teenagers. Everyone in this place had murderous and savage vibes surrounding them. Compared with Mo Yuan and the rest before they had become Dragonians, the differences were stark. No matter whether they were male or female, they were now all killing machines. Close to the middle of the base, there was a relatively large room. Wang Xian took a closer look and saw a group of elders in the room. There were a total of 6 elders. They stood in the room and were all looking towards a position above them. They are able to see what's happening above the lake from their room. Wang Xian was slightly shocked. The lake was 7 to 8 meters deep and wasn't exceptionally clear. Looking down from above the lake's surface, one wouldn't be able to tell what was below it. However, the Dark Conjurers were able to supervise the situation above the lake with another method. Clearly, the sudden arrival of a group of powerful forces had made them feel a little anxious. However, the few elders didn't show it on their faces. They were very confident about their base and were convinced that no one would find them here, even if the group of experts were in the vicinity of the lake. The entire Dark Conjurers base has more than 1,000 assassins and 6 inborn experts. Furthermore, there are countless poisonous animals and 2 inborn realm huge pythons guarding the entrance. Wang Xian squinted his eyes and explained to Mo Qinglong and the group about what he had seen. From now onwards, let's send them into the abyss. Wang Xian realized that he was in love with this cool slogan as he remarked plainly. Mo Qinglong and the crowd smirked. Under the disguise of the abyss masks, they looked extremely creepy. Attack! Moving off, Wang Xian shrouded his dragon power towards the 2 blood pythons. Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan, and the 7 Dragonians also struck as they dashed into the base of the Dark Conjurers. SSS, SSS, SSS. The moment Wang Xian stepped into the base of the Dark Conjurers, the 2 blood pythons lying at each side were instantly triggered. They stared coldly at Wang Xian with the blood-red pupils. I wouldn't want to kill you guys. Keeping you guys alive would be beneficial to me. Wang Xian waved his arms as the dragon power weighed on the 2 huge bodies of the blood pythons. Beside the blood pythons, there was a tuft of red poisonous grass. A dense stream of azure dragon energy was injected into it directly. The poisonous grass started growing frantically and wrapped towards the 2 huge blood pythons. Wang Xian increased his speed to the maximum and landed 2 punches on the heads of the 2 blood pythons, knocking them unconscious before they could react. Kill! Shouted Wang Xian. He didn't attempt to hide their arrival at all as he shrouded the entire base under his powerful aura. Kill. We will send the Dark Conjurers into the abyss. 7 Dragonians let out a mechanical-like voice from behind their abyss masks, which resounded in the entire base of the Dark Conjurers. What's the matter? Stifling pressure and the cold voice spread to every corner of the Dark Conjurers' base. The upper management of the Dark Conjurers, who were observing the situation above the lake from the room in the central location, were taken aback and instantly turned gloomy. Someone has infiltrated our base. This is bad. Our base has been found. The 6 elders were shocked. Moving off, they jumped out from the room through the roof as they looked around them. 10 people. Over there. 10 people who are wearing the abyss masks. They seem to be the newly emerged assassins from the abyss. The 6 elders looked across and saw Wang Xian and the crowd at the entrance. Instantly, their expressions turned solemn. I had not expected anyone to be able to infiltrate our base. They must die. 10 of them. Kill them immediately. The voice of 2 elders propagated throughout the entire Dark Conjurer base. The next instant, the entire Dark Conjurer's base seemed to have come alive. Assassins emerged from various rooms and corners of the base. Every one of them had bloodshot eyes and was staring at Wang Xian and the group harshly as they emerged from their rooms. They jumped to the roof and looked down on the 10 people. Some poisonous animals also crawled rapidly out of the room. Poisonous snakes, scorpions, spiders, blood-red ants, and large centipedes. On the ground, poisonous gas shrouded the paths. An ordinary person would die instantly from just a sniff of it. On the roofs, over 1,000 assassins were in position. Wang Xian and the group paused and stood in a single row in front of the entrance. The 7 Dragonians looked solemnly across all the assassins. Dark Conjurers had lots of experts, including 30 to 40 half-step to Inborn experts. Moreover, these top-class experts specialized in killing and risking their lives. Any single one of these half-step to Inborn experts would be at the pinnacle of the same level when placed in the outside world. Together with these poisonous animals, they were incomparably horrifying. The 6 elders moved like phantoms as they quickly made their way to the row of houses before the entrance. From above, they looked down coldly at Wang Xian and the group. You guys managed to find our base by yourself? An old lady questioned. What was horrifying about her was the poisonous snakes above her head. When the old lady spoke, they were hissing and spreading their horrifying mouths. This made Wang Xian recall a horrifying movie he had once seen. The old woman's face was full of wrinkles, and her voice was coarse. When she spoke, it sounded like the pitiful cries of a ghost. Her eyes were staring at Wang Xian and the group just like how a poisonous snake stared at its prey. Yep, just the few of us. Wang Xian looked at the 1,000 assassins and countless poisonous animals in front of him and spoke plainly. All right then, you guys can die now. Chapter 287. I'll send you guys into the abyss, too. You guys can die now. A ghastly voice was heard from the base of Dark Conjurers underwater. All the surrounding Dark Conjurer assassins raised the daggers in their hands as soon as they heard the voice. Daggers, the sharpest weapon for assassination. Deadly and fatal at the sight of the blood. Kill. Thousands of assassins spun into quick action under the old lady's order. They moved like a gust of wind, stone-cold looks in their eyes. Murderous and savage aura, filling the entire Dark Conjurer's base, could almost make any average person suffocate to death. The thousands of top-notch killers were simply terrifying. I'll leave them to you guys, Wang Xian told the rest of the 9 Dragonians, including Emo Qinglong and Azure Dragon. He did not make his move as he stared coldly at the 6 elders in front of him. These 6 elders were the most powerful existences of the Dark Conjurers. In particular, the old lady in the middle, who posed a slight threat to him. Even though this old lady is not at the same level as Sui Huang, that old thing, it's just a mere difference. Wang Xian looked at the old lady and pondered to himself. Go to hell. You'll become the food of the Dark Conjurers for barging in. A half-step to Inborn expert of the Dark Conjurers bellowed coldly and attacked them with a swift move. Hayak, I'll send you guys into the abyss. 7 Dragonians yelped as they stared at the outspreading Dark Conjurer assassins charging at them with bloodthirsty faces. Kill! Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan sprang into action too. 9 of them exuded immense clouds of devilish aura that masked their figures. Only a malevolent and cold-looking abyss mask was vaguely seen. Claws of the Devil Dragon. Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan, along with the 7 Dragonians, revealed their maximum strength. Faint dragon scales could be seen on their arms. The dragon claws formed with demonic aura exhibited black luster and were as sharp as razors. Bam! 9 of them knocked against thousands of Dark Conjurer assassins. Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan swept their dragon claws and slashed dozens of Dark Conjurer assassins straight away. They were already pinnacle Inborn to begin with. Hence, they could easily slaughter anyone who was not an Inborn. Countless poisonous animals who just made their way before them on the ground were trembling with fear. They did not dare to strike. Deep down in their souls, the poisonous animals were fearful of the Dragonians who had divine dragon bloodlines. Dozens of assassins had been killed after a moment of close-quarters fighting. 6 elders, standing in the middle of a rooftop, swept their icy gazes across Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan. Kill them all. The old lady in the center gave orders to 2 Inborn experts beside her after observing the situation with an indifferent look. Yes, bloodthirsty looks surfaced on their faces as their eyes turned red, giving off a violent vibe. I'm your opponent, Wang Xian said in a cold voice when he noticed that the Inborn experts on the roof were about to strike. His voice came through his abyss mask, which sounded robotic and cold. No one could tell the speaker's age by his voice. Then kill this fellow first? The old lady looked at Wang Xian with lifeless eyes that seemed offish. The poisonous snake on her head was lifting its head, staring at him with a pair of dark eyes. I'll slay you first. How dare a worthless abyss assassin barge in on the Dark Conjurers? As the 2 old men spoke, they rushed down from the roof, side by side, with daggers in their hands. The daggers were reflecting green radiance as they were smeared with venom. No one could survive a cut. Wang Xian quirked his lips at the corner when he saw the 2 Dark Conjurer Inborn experts assaulting him. He reached out his arm, sending a fiery red ball flying out with rapid speed. The dragon ball emerged ahead of him with sounds of water gushing in. Damn you! Upon hearing the sound from the entrance, the old lady's expression changed. She grabbed the poisonous snakes on top of her head and hurled them at the entrance. Hiss! Only after they were being thrown out, one realized they were 3-headed poisonous snakes. It was terrifying looking with 3 heads sharing a body. The poisonous snakes exhibited imposing might as they opened their mouths and spurted out an ink-colored toxic mist. The toxic mist lingered around the entrance, blocking the incoming flux of the water. Wang Xian was not bothered by it at all. He looked disdainfully at the 2 Inborn experts who darted towards him. Boom! The dragon ball suddenly exploded into flames, encompassing the 2 Inborn experts immediately. What a strong flame bead! The 2 Dark Conjurer Inborn experts were appalled. They dodged to the side swiftly. Roar! At this time, a soft dragon roar was heard coming out of the dragon ball. Soon after, 2 Dark Conjurer Inborn experts watched in disbelief as daunting dragon claws emerged from the dragon ball. The dragon claws seemed to be solid, formed out of magma. Drops of magma seemed to be dripping from them. Boom! They came down and attempted to claw at the 2 Dark Conjurer Inborn experts' heads. The solid claws were about a half-meter in size each, giving off scorching temperature. 2 of them were aghast with a drastic change in their expressions as they quickly raised their daggers to block them. Ka. However, the sound of something breaking was heard when the solid dragon claws tore them with daunting might and temperature. 2 painful shrieks were heard, and the two dark conjurer experts turned into liquid as soon as the dragon claws struck them. The dragon ball jerked gently as it slowly formed a head, body, and tail of a dragon before Wang Xian. The Fire Divine Dragon was even more realistic than the one during the fight with Flame Palace. Its mightiness was stronger after absorbing the Spiritual Flame Ball and body-refining Spiritual Flame Ball. It was almost a level 11. What? A Fire Divine Dragon, 7 meters long, had appeared in front of the Dark Conjurer experts and killed their 2 Inborn experts in a split second. All 4 Dark Conjurer experts on the roof had dreadful looks instantly. How can this divine dragon be possible? Radiance flickered in their eyes as they warily watched the Fire Divine Dragon that hovered in the air above Wang Xian. The divine dragon seemed to be a living dragon. They could not have believed it was transformed from a flame bead if they had not seen it with their own eyes. Gu-ji-ji. Hiss. All the poisonous animals were lying on the floor in the base of the Dark Conjurers. Some of them even tried to flee to the distance in horror as they lost all their fighting spirit. All the Dark Conjurer assassins in the base were taken aback with a tint of shock flashing across their inhospitable faces. Today, we'll send Dark Conjurers into the abyss. Wang Xian stood there and spoke to the 4 Dark Conjurer experts with an emotionless voice. Abyss assassins caught me by surprise. I wonder, how did we offend you guys? The old lady on the roof squinted her eyes into lines, just like snakes. The Dark Conjurers killed 2 of our people. So, the entire Dark Conjurers must be annihilated. Chapter 288. I'll send you guys into the abyss. 3. You are really brazen. The old lady stared intensely at Wang Xian and said with her coarse voice. She looked to the Inferno Divine Dragon, but wasn't flustered at all. It's still an inborn realm existence after all. Today, I'll destroy it. After which, I'll make you into a puppet. The old lady shook her head as she said. She had a rather long neck that made her look rather creepy. Kill him, the old lady said casually. The moment she gave her orders, all the people on the roof disappeared from sight. Kill? The other 3 men didn't hesitate at all. They had 100% confidence in the strength of the old lady. Hee, you are also an inborn realm existence. Within Wang Xian's vision, the old lady had appeared above him, carrying 2 daggers made of bones in her hands. Her speed was astonishingly fast, and her strength wasn't something that Mo Qinglong could match. However, she was still just an inborn level expert. If one was considering her cultivation realm, she was probably at the half-step to Dan realm. Wang Xian lifted his head slightly, and the Inferno Divine Dragon above his head did the same. Rumble. A stream of dragon flames spewed forward. What a strong spiritual animal! The coarse voice sounded from the void space. A faint shadow shimmered and appeared 3 meters ahead of Wang Xian creepily. How quick! Wang Xian commented plainly about the old lady. The moment the old lady charged towards him with the 2 bone daggers, the tail of the Inferno Divine Dragon swept towards her. Rumble. The old lady sank the 2 bone daggers on the tail of the Inferno Divine Dragon. However, she was still knocked back several steps. Shock gleamed in her eyes as she turned solemn. Let me hold this spiritual animal back while you go and kill him. This spiritual animal requires his manipulation to move. The old lady quickly noticed the crux of the situation. She deduced that the Inferno Divine Dragon was a dead thing after all, and required the manipulation of a human. Just as she had expected, the Inferno Divine Dragon required Wang Xian to control it. Hee. Wang Xian smirked and looked towards the old lady and 3 inborn experts from the Dark Conjurers attacking him. Use all your trump cards, the old lady added plainly. She extended her hands and stroked her hair, which was tied up. Her hair was long and could almost reach the floor. When she released the knot, her hair turned completely green. Although having green hair was a hilarious idea, the old lady in front of him at this moment was definitely frightening. Her hair was green and was even emitting a faint green mist. Every strand of her hair was like a poisonous snake as it stood up. Her hair pointed directly at where Wang Xian and the Inferno Divine Dragon were at, and it swayed. A green tinge of light was cast on the old lady's face due to her hair. This made her look just like a vengeful spirit. The other three inborn experts from the Dark Conjurers took out small bottles, gritted their teeth, and poured the contents into their mouths. Gulp, gulp, gulp. A nauseating voice sounded from them. The three experts looked ferocious and emitted strong decadent vibes from their bodies. It was as though they had transformed from a human into a rotting corpse. They wouldn't feel pain, but would have a substantial increase in defense and potency of attacks. Arg, I'm going to bite you into pieces. The three experts from the Dark Conjurers seemed to be in intense pain in exchange for the horrifying strength from their rotting bodies. Haha, this is interesting. Wang Xian looked enthusiastically at the old lady and three experts. The four people had increased their strength to a horrifying level by using creepy methods. Even Mo Qinglong wouldn't be a match for any single one of them. Wang Xian laughed loudly and opened his mouth. Roar! The Inferno Divine Dragon flew above Wang Xian before turning into the Dragon Ball and returning to Wang Xian's stomach, after which Wang Xian stretched his body a little. Rumble. At this moment, a 1-meter-long divine dragon circled around Wang Xian constantly. In the end, the divine dragon rested its head on Wang Xian's shoulder. Let's fight. Taking off, Wang Xian revealed an arrogant and unyielding expression. This was the first time he was able to fight without worries with all he had in his human form. I'll let you bring along your assassins from the abyss to hell. The old lady attacked Wang Xian like a poisonous snake. The three experts from the Dark Conjurers with decadent vibes also attacked at the same time. I'm the Dragon King. Now die. Wang Xian threw his claws forward. The Inferno Divine Dragons instantly wrapped around his arm, covering his dragon claws with flames. SSS, SSS, SSS. The old lady met Wang Xian's claw with the two creepy bone daggers. At the same time, her hair charged towards Wang Xian like a nest of snakes. Her green hair was rapid and cold like poisonous snakes. Facing her hair was similar to facing thousands of poisonous snakes. Rot. The daggers of the other three experts from the Dark Conjurers were shrouded in a decadent aura. Above the daggers, a unique liquid was flowing. The moment the liquid dripped onto the ground, it corroded the ground and left a hole, approximately half a meter deep. Incomparably horrifying. Is this witchcraft? Wang Xian squinted his eyes. The old lady used the blood and essences of 1,000 poisonous snakes and witchcraft to grow her own hair. This allowed her hair to possess horrifying attacking potency and poison. How could some poisonous snake essences be compared with a divine dragon? Roar! Wang Xian growled loudly. The moment the sound waves hit the old lady's hair, her hair instantly lost its attacking ability. The dragon rules the world. Wang Xian extended his arms, and the Inferno Divine Dragon around him moved quickly on his arms accordingly. Dense flames gathered and shot towards the old lady and the other three experts. Rumble. The horrifying flames dried the land completely once again. The old lady's hair was caught in the flames and was sizzling. Horrifying cries that resembled the cries of 100 ghosts sounded from the head of the old lady. Bam! 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 The old lady and the three experts from the Dark Conjurers were sent crashing back directly. Rumble. Wang Xian waved his arm once again. Scorching hot flames immediately swept towards their bodies. Arg! When the flames landed on them, they cried pitifully. It was as though they were being corroded by acid. So powerful. How can you be so powerful? Have you reached the Dan realm? No, it can't be. The old lady looked savage. Only half of her hair remained as she looked on in shock. The flames had also burnt away part of her clothes, revealing her green body. She didn't seem to be a human anymore. Go GG, GGG. Kill, kill, kill. I'll send you guys into the abyss. At this moment, Mo Qinglong and the group let out a loud roar. They were drenched in blood by now. Within the short time frame, they had already slain hundreds of Dark Conjurer experts. If it wasn't for the fact that they had the bloodline of the divine dragon, even Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan would have died under the besiegement of the crowd of experts from the Dark Conjurers. You want to annihilate the Dark Conjurers? Let me tell you this. Even a sacred sect wouldn't be able to do so. Chapter 289. I'll send you guys into the abyss, Fore. The old woman's voice was hoarse. She wiped away the blood at the corner of her lips before she jumped onto a roof. The three Dark Conjurer experts retreated with malevolent faces. Those fearless Dark Conjurer assassins who were besieging Imo Qinglong and Imo Yuan stopped. All of them moved back uniformly with their usual coldness in their eyes. There was no fear in them. Why? Trying to escape? Wang Xian glared at those Dark Conjurer experts as he approached them slowly. Imo Qinglong, Imo Yuan, and the rest moved together beside Wang Xian. All of them had their abyss masks on while casting them death stares. They gave off a bloody, daunting, bloodthirsty, and conceited aura. As the group of Dark Conjurer experts retreated, they followed them slowly. All of them moved as though they were ferocious men, entering a tiger's den. May the Master Conjurer of the Dark Conjurers arrive. May the Master Conjurer of the Dark Conjurers arrive. The voice of the old woman was heard while the rest of the Dark Conjurer assassins were yelling at the top of their lungs with overwhelming passion in their eyes. May the Master Conjurer of the Dark Conjurers arrive. Hiss. Those poisonous insects that were alive crawled slowly to a position on the middle of the ground. Eek. A coffin slowly rose to the ground. Ka-ka-ka. Everyone heard the sound of a coffin opening. I said not to disturb me if there's nothing important. An old but clear voice that sounded like metal was heard. The voice was so cold that it did not sound human. Pa. A palm slowly reached out. But no, it was not a palm. It was a set of bones. Stickman. He was totally a stickman. His arm was almost twice as long as an average person's. A black layer of skin wrapped around its bones. Master Conjurer, please exterminate the enemies for us. The old woman immediately knelt down. Master Conjurer, please exterminate the enemies for us. All the surrounding Dark Conjurer assassins knelt and shouted loudly. Someone broke into our base? Just kill them off then. The old and clear voice was heard again. Soon after, a figure slowly stood up. A bony old man rose from the coffin without any flesh and blood on him. His eyes were protruding out, and his mouth could not cover his teeth. No vitality could be observed from him. However, this old man that was left with an almost skeletal body turned to look at Wang Xian and the rest. Kill them. The old man was slow in all his reactions as he had been in his sleep for an unknown period. He only managed to spit out 2 words softly. Yet, he disappeared as soon as he finished those 2 words. Someone who is as strong as Sui Huang. Wang Xian drew a deep breath at the sudden sight of a coffin that rose from the ground. His pupils narrowed as an old man came into his line of sight in a split second. Master Conjurer, please kill them all. They have killed many of our members. When the old woman and the Dark Conjurers witnessed the disappearance of the old man, they exhibited immense confidence. All of them were prideful as they lifted their chins. He was their Master Conjurer. Invincible Master Conjurer. Their only faith. The founder of Dark Conjurer. Oh, serves them right for interrupting my sleep. Their consequences. Let them forever rest in their sleep. The ancient and aloof voice cut the air. All the Dark Conjurers' eyes had fires burning fervently in them. They could not take their passionate eyes away as they watched the Master Conjurer annihilating their enemies. The scrawny old man's eyes were cloudy as though he was unawakened. Yet, his speed and prowess were terrifying. While his voice still lingered in the air, the Master Conjurer was already standing beside Wang Xian. He raised his palm and aimed for Wang Xian's neck. Rough and straightforward with a speed that none of the Inborn experts could match up with. Invincible posture. Overlooking stance. He had it all. Pa. Yet Wang Xian raised his arm and contacted with the old man's arm just when every dark conjurer thought their master conjurer could easily squeeze him to death. You shouldn't come out of your coffin again and act cocky, especially in front of me. Wang Xian's indifferent voice resounded in the entire dark conjurer's base. What? All the dark conjurer assassins were shocked to see this. That abyss masked man had blocked the assault of their master conjurer. But that was their master conjurer. Even in the beginning when they were taken out by the other party, all of the dark conjurers were almost certain they could win when the master conjurer was summoned. They had no doubt that there were no enemies that the master conjurer could not eradicate. They stared at that arm that had collided with the arm of master conjurer. No, that could not be called an arm. That was a monster's arm that seemed like some kind of dragon's claw. You're the first person that has forced me to display my full prowess in human form. Wang Xian stared at the skinny old man. At the same time, his arm had already turned into a complete dragon claw. The fleshy dragon claws were not transformed from the Dragon Ball. It was part of his divine dragon's body. The protruding eyes of the master conjurer regained clear vision as a tint of surprise was revealed in them. Are you surprised? As Wang Xian spoke, another arm began to transform into part of the dragon. Slowly, he stretched out his other arm. I did not expect I would meet another expert at the same level. The master conjurer had already regained his clear vision with flesh and blood recovering creepily on his body. He jerked his arm, exuding murderous aura. You're still weaker than me. Both Wang Xian's arms had turned into dragon claws that were about a meter long. He grabbed both of the master conjurer's arms easily. Terror was flashing in master conjurer's eyes. Just now, he had tried to struggle away with his full might, but he could not move a single inch. This struck fear into him. How was this possible? Since you don't want to stay underground, I'll send you to heaven. Wang Xian scorned even though the old man was in Dan realm. However, his strength and body condition were the weakest in the Dan realm. How could such a fellow like him dare to crawl out of the coffin and boast that he could destroy him? Wang Xian raised his dragon claws slowly. No. Sensing that he was in complete confinement, the master conjurer panicked. He lost all of his calm, relaxed, and casual look. Bam! A dragon claw was brought down from the top, sweeping up daunting earth-shattering power that hit the master conjurer. Instantly, his body and bones were crushed. Boom! His body was sent flying in the air. The master conjurer no longer made any sound. Ka. At this time, the unique glass on the top cracked and gave way as the master conjurer continued to fly up into the sky. No way. The husky voice of the old woman sounded petrified as she looked on in disbelief. The dark conjurer assassins around looked up as they were surprised and fearful. Their faith, the founder of the dark conjurers, was sent flying off. This time, they were all in a total panic as fear loomed over them. Chapter 290. I'll send you guys into the abyss. 5. As the creator and strongest expert in the dark conjurers, the master conjurer had not fought for a long time. However, the invincible image of the master conjurer was vividly etched into their minds. He was their god and their belief. Just a while ago, they were at peace and confident to see the master conjurer stepping out from his coffin. As long as the master conjurer was around, the dark conjurers wouldn't face any grave dangers. In their eyes, the master conjurer could kill many of their enemies in a single strike, even if the enemies might seem very powerful. However, what really happened greatly tilted their long-held beliefs. They looked in shock and horror at that abyss assassin whose hand had turned into a monster claw. Is this his true strength? He didn't even utilize his full strength previously. An expert from the dark conjurers shivered and his eyes were filled with horror. His rotting body was gradually leaking fresh blood after having consumed the drug previously. No, this can't be possible. Our master conjurer won't lose. The old lady cried out in disbelief with her coarse voice. Defeat wasn't possible. Yet, They had lost so completely. The Master Conjurer had just stepped out, said a few words, took some actions, and he was then defeated. It was as though the Master Conjurer was just a small existence that the assassin could crush easily. The stark differences made it hard for them to accept. Crack. Just as the old lady completed her words, the glass above them cracked slowly and the lake water gushed down on her head. It was as though fate was reminding her that the dark conjurers were finished. Kill them. Wang Xian's emotionless voice resounded within the dark conjurer's base once again. This time, they were really going to send you guys into the abyss. Ha 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 ha. I said that this heavenly hound belongs to our sacred soul sect. You guys are still thinking of snatching it from us? At this moment, on the surface of the lake, the group of sacred soul sect experts and disciples had surrounded the heavenly hound. The heavenly hound stopped on the surface of the lake while barking indignantly. A middle-aged man from Sacred Soul Sect stood beyond the encirclement. He looked down coldly at the several forces around and spoke. The surrounding martial artists felt indignant but could only look helplessly at the crowd from the Sacred Soul Sect. The heavenly hound had been tightly surrounded by them. Moreover, they were just first-class forces and wouldn't dare to snatch the items of Sacred Soul Sect. If it were something that had no owner, they might still put up a fight and compete with the Sacred Soul Sect. However, now that the Sacred Soul Sect had surrounded the Heavenly Hound, it was equivalent to the Sacred Soul Sect owning it. If they still tried to snatch it from them, it would be identical to going against the Sacred Soul Sect. Sacred Soul Sect was a sacred sect with a deep history. It would require all other forces currently around to work together to have a shot against them. However, how could a heap of loose sand compete with a sacred sect? The disciples of Sacred Soul Sect looked cockily and coldly at the dozen-plus forces in front of them. The Heavenly Hound was there belonging now. Bam! At this moment, a loud explosion sounded from the bottom of the lake, following which, a figure shot out and flew into the sky. The sudden appearance of this figure from the bottom of the lake gave everyone in Sacred Soul Sect a scare. Some Sacred Soul Sect disciples immediately dodged to the side. What's that? A human figure? Why would something charge out from the bottom of the lake? Everyone was baffled. The disciples of the Sacred Soul Sect and the experts from the dozen-plus forces were shocked to witness the sudden change. They seemed to have seen a human figure shoot out from the surface of the lake to a height of over 100 meters before falling heavily towards the surface of the lake. Everyone looked in shock at that figure. Bam! The figure sank into the lake once again, causing a huge splash. What's the situation? Is that a human? It can fly freely? Everyone looked on in shock. Charge! Capture the Heavenly Hound! At this moment, an old man shouted enthusiastically as his eyes lit up. The crowd of the Sacred Soul Sect was shocked, following which they realized that the Heavenly Hound, which they had previously surrounded, had charged out of the encirclement while they were distracted. A young man looked at the Heavenly Hound and shouted angrily, "Shit! That Heavenly Hound belongs to our Sacred Soul Sect." Once the Heavenly Hound charged out of the Sacred Soul Sect's encirclement, it no longer had an owner. The surrounding forces had once again gained the rights to compete for it. The Heavenly Hound belongs to our Sacred Soul Sect. The three Inborn experts from the Sacred Soul Sect released their aura. Without consideration for the surrounding people, a horrifying aura shrouded towards the surroundings. An old man took out a white bead from his chest gloomily. Under the illumination of the Sacred Soul, everyone will be enlightened. Everyone will have to kneel down, mumbled the old man as the white sacred bead glowed in dazzling light. Carrying the light, he charged ahead of all the forces. With a haughty and cold look, he looked down on everyone as though he was passing judgment. Everyone, do not take a further step forward. The domineering voice of the old man sounded. The dazzling light shrouded an area of 100 meters. Within this space, what was left was just endless white. Even sunlight couldn't shine through it. What? Sacred Soul Bead. Shit! Who would have expected the Sacred Soul Sect to have brought along the Sacred Soul Bead? Damn it! Although the sacred soul bead isn't that powerful, it could still temporarily halt 4 to 5 inborn experts in the hands of an expert of the sacred soul sect. The surrounding crowd looked indignant once again. They had not expected the sacred soul sect to be hiding their strength all along. Once again, they experienced how terrifying sacred soul sect was. Unfathomable. Their trump card was something they could never match. Imbecile. If you still dare to run, I'll slaughter you. An inborn expert from Sacred Soul sect looked furiously at the heavenly hound who was shrouded in strong aura. Run? You've got to ask if we, the Sacred Soul sect, agree to it. The disciples of Sacred Soul sect surrounded the heavenly hound once again and locked their eyes on it. Grr, woof, woof. The heavenly hound growled and stared furiously at the surrounding crowd. Haha, if we let you escape this time, our Sacred Soul sect would let down the name of a sacred sect. You are just an imbecile. Don't even think about becoming a demon. The disciples of the Sacred Soul sect stared harshly at the heavenly hound. Huff, forget it. I give up. We can't possibly win against the Sacred Soul sect. This heavenly hound is now the belonging of the Sacred Soul sect. We have no more hope. It would be hard for the heavenly hound to escape this time. The surrounding crowd sighed one after another. Boom, boom, boom. Just as the crowd was whispering, more figures flew from the bottom of the lake and into the skies once again. This time, it wasn't just a single person. Everyone was shocked once again, and this included the disciples of the Sacred Soul sect. The crowd's attention fell on the human figures that were dashing out from the water surface. However, the location they came out from happened to be where the heavenly hound was. The disciples of the Sacred Soul sect immediately moved aside. As for the heavenly hound, it found another opportunity to escape. Fuck. Who the hell are they? Are they seeking death? An inborn expert from the Sacred Soul sect shouted furiously when he saw the heavenly hound escaping once again. Chapter 291. Terror Strikes Amongst the Heroes. The Sacred Soul sect had gone through pains before they managed to entrap the heavenly hound. It would not be long before they finally captured it. Alas, a black shadow emerged from the bottom of the lake and soared into the sky, before plunging back into the waters. This allowed the heavenly hound to escape. When they exhausted all means to entrap the hound a second time, another black shadow came zipping past yet again. This time, it was not just one, but up to 10 shadows coming up simultaneously. This gave the heavenly hound another chance to escape. Members from the Sacred Soul sect were fuming in anger over the constant harassment. It was akin to offending the sect by tugging at the dragon's beard, to which the offender was courting death. An inborn expert of the sect glared coldly at the 10 who landed on the waters. As he did so, he scowled. How dare you antagonize the Sacred Soul sect time and again? You're courting death. The 10, each wearing a black mask from the abyss, looked grubby and possessed an air of bloodthirst. 10 masked fellows who cannot even show their faces. You've pushed the limits to our tolerance. Should you not come up with a perfect explanation, you'll sink in the lake forever. An elder warned. Holding the sacred soul bead in hand, the elder stared at the 10 masked men with a somber face. Upon hearing the commotion, Wang Xian, Mo Qinglong, Mo Yuan, and the 7 Dragonians frowned. Huh? They quipped, before looking in the direction of the Sacred Soul sect. A bunch of lawbreakers. Now take your masks off. A disciple of the sect snarled. With a face of fury, he attacked Wang Xian and the gang who were standing near him. Fancy launching an attack without knowing the details. How overbearing. This group is about to meet their doom for disrupting the plans of the Sacred Soul sect, said the sect members. The Sacred Soul sect has blown their top. Let's retreat. The forces standing around panicked. Bang, bang, bang. It was at this moment that something more shocking happened right before everyone's eyes. Figures shrouded in austerity had flung themselves out of the water from the bottom of the lake. In no time, more than 20 had emerged. One could sense the desolation that the group evoked as they remained in utter silence. The old lady standing in the middle was even shivering. Upon emerging, another old woman let out a blood-curdling shriek, which chilled everyone to the bones. It's heaven's will that we dark conjurers are wiped out. But you, Abyss, even if I should turn into a vengeful ghost, I'll never let you off, she screeched. Prior to this, the glass shield which defended the dark conjurer's base from the top had cracked, from which waters were gushing in at alarming speeds. Meanwhile, Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan had led the 7 Dragonians into a massive wipeout of the dark conjurers underwater. Within minutes, only a little over 20 dark conjurers were left. Disheartened, they were left in panic and fear. This was so, even as the most formidable amongst Wang Xian's group of 10, also the one to have killed their master conjurer in a single palm strike, had yet to make a move on them. As the entire dark conjurer's base collapsed, the masked men from the abyss made a dash for the lake surface. Left with no solution, rushing out was all they could manage. Whoever provokes us from the abyss will be annihilated, even if you're the dark conjurers, for which you shall be banished into the abyss. Mo Yuan turned to the remaining dark conjurers and said, all apathetic. Among the 20 left were 4 Inborns, while the remaining were all half-step Inborns. To think that we dark conjurers have actually fallen by the hands of the rookie abyss, after dominating for half a century. How unexpected. Truly unexpected. The group ridiculed. Since the assassination of their master conjurer, they had lost all will to retaliate. I'll send you all to the abyss, the Dragonians warned. In one shift, the 7 charged forth at striking speed. Along with Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan, they made their way towards the remaining dark conjurers. The surviving dark conjurers showed no signs of struggle. They had given up on fighting back. Knowing that the formidable masked man was amongst their opponents, any form of struggle would only prove futile. Raising their heads, their faces were overcome by insanity and grimacing. Turning towards the sky, they let out a spooky laugh. Even if I should transform into a vengeful spirit, I'll never let you people off, they vowed. While they laughed, they exuded an eerie albeit overpowering aura. Even in death, they would meet their maker smiling with pride. The atmosphere began to fill with gore, tyranny, brutality, and bloodthirst, which took the people around by surprise. At that very moment, they could not help but feel shivers down their spines. Bam, bam, bam. Soon enough, the remaining dark conjurers turned into corpses. As they dropped into the lake, their bodies gradually sunk to the bottom. What's the catch now? The crowd asked, in shock as they looked on. This was abruptly followed by a group of experts emerging from the waters. It was the 10 masked men from the abyss. To think that those horrifying and tyrannical experts had been slaughtered by these masked men easily, and the onlookers could still remember the sense of despair in the eyes of those slaughtered. It was not a case of unwillingness, but rather the sense that it was no longer necessary for them to retaliate. They had felt unfit to put up a fight. All of this despite the fact that they had a group of 20, which included several inborn experts amongst other half-step inborns. Just what sort of experts are those masked men to be able to force the surviving dark conjurers into giving up? At the thought, the inborn experts and disciples of the Sacred Soul sect could not help but gulp. As for those 20, the stance they displayed right before they perished was simply horrifying. It was more than what would be needed to wipe out all members of Sacred Soul sect present. Everyone began to look over in the direction of the 10 masked men. Just earlier, the old woman seemed to have said that they're the dark conjurers, some stuttered. That's right, those killed were the dark conjurers. Goodness, so the dark conjurers have been annihilated, wiped out. Others chimed in. The dark conjurers have been destroyed. How could this be? They're the most formidable assassin group in the underworld. Even the sacred sects have found them hard to remove, a middle-aged elder squeaked. Meanwhile, the faces on everyone scrunched in utter disbelief, along with shock. The Dark Conjurers have been annihilated. Once again, everyone focused on the 10 masked men. I'll send you to the Abyss. Aren't they the Abyss who have just risen in fame within the underworld? One questioned. The Abyss. The ones with the signature masks, and who will roar confidently before they kill. I'll send you to the Abyss. It's them. It's got to be them. Another replied. To think that it's the Abyss who've wiped out the Dark Conjurers. Goodness. Oh, goodness. More chipped in. Frightening. How frightening. The rest commented. The rise of yet another threatening force in the underworld, the rest concluded. The multiple forces chirped as they looked at the 10 masked men. Overwhelmed by shock, their eyes gushed in fear. The annihilation of the Dark Conjurers was a feat even the sacred sect could not achieve. That is not filth on them. That's fresh blood. One of the Inborn experts mumbled as he stared at the masked men. Even as an Inborn expert himself, seeing the blood and gore on the tin gave him chills. Did you say you're going to let us remain under this lake forever? Emo Qinglong asked, to which he turned his head back briefly to look at the crowd from Sacred Soul Sect. Blop, blop, blop. While he spoke, the base of the Dark Conjurers collapsed in complete destruction. The surface of the lake started to cave in, and as it did, the waters started bubbling. Suddenly, dead bodies flushed out of the lake waters from the bottom. One by one, slow but steady. Just gazing over, one could spot corpses numbering in the thousands. Chapter 292, Invincible. You are going to let us remain under this lake forever. The voices from the 10 people who wore abyss masks sounded. The waters in the lake were in turmoil and bodies were moving in the lake. The scene was astonishing and everyone was shocked. All the people looked at the 10 men who wore abyss masks and couldn't help but gasp. Can it be that these 10 people have annihilated all the Dark Conjurers? I didn't expect the nest of the Dark Conjurers to be under a lake in the Dongling mountain range. What's more surprising is that they were annihilated by the Abyss, who just emerged. Sacred Soul Sect? What will they do? Continue to be domineering? Do they dare? The group of forces was discussing fervently. Eventually, their attention slowly fell in the direction of the Sacred Soul Sect. The disciples and experts of the Sacred Soul Sect were breaking out in cold sweat. Fear gleamed in their eyes. At this moment, they did not have the airs of a sacred sect or the dominance they had displayed towards all the other forces previously. Facing the 10 unknown experts who were able to destroy the Dark Conjurers, even those from the Sacred Soul Sect didn't dare to be brazen. At the thought of the 20-odd experts who were killed without putting up resistance, they felt a chill down their spines. There were 4 Inborn experts and over 20 half-step to Inborn experts among the group. The group was powerful enough to warrant special attention from the Sacred Soul Sect. Misunderstanding, it was just a misunderstanding. We were wrong previously. It's our mistake, and we will leave immediately. The expression of one of the experts from the Sacred Soul Sect changed rapidly. He took a deep breath and bowed. Subsequently, the expert gestured to the disciples of the Sacred Soul Sect and left immediately. Wang Xian watched them leave without saying a word. Damn, the Sacred Soul Sect left. That's equivalent to admitting defeat. What else did you expect? For them to fight these people? This is a group that can annihilate the Dark Conjurers. Even the Sacred Soul Sect needs to be careful when dealing with them. That's right, even a sacred sect had a hard time dealing with Dark Conjurers previously. When the killing order from the Sacred Sect was issued, the entire Sacred Sect was activated to attack the Dark Conjurers. Even though the Dark Conjurers didn't dare to show themselves, 2 elders from the Sacred Sect were assassinated during the siege. The Sacred Soul Sect was still acting high and mighty previously. Right now, they can only admit defeat and even give up on the Heavenly Hound. I don't know if the Abyss has the strength that matches those of a sacred sect. The crowd looked at the Sacred Soul Sect who was leaving and then at the 10 people with the Abyss masks and eventually the Heavenly Hound. The Heavenly Hound stood in the lake without moving as it was surrounded. It didn't dare to escape. It stood on the lake, licking its wounds and staring at its surroundings coldly. "Come here," Wang Xian shouted to the Heavenly Hound. He looked across the crowd before looking towards the Heavenly Hound, which was not far away. After which, he spread his dragon power over the Heavenly Hound. Woof woof. The Heavenly Hound let out a deep howl before looking at Wang Xian fearfully. His intelligence has manifested. Wang Xian looked joyously at the Heavenly Hound and revealed a smile. Woof! The Heavenly Hound barked again and walked slowly towards Wang Xian. Not bad. Wang Xian smiled and caressed the Heavenly Hound's head. At the same time, he injected the energy of the Azure Dragon into it to treat its wounds. Woof woof! The Heavenly Hound stuck out its tongue and licked Wang Xian's hand before rubbing its head against him. Damn! Comparing only makes one feel inferior. We worked so hard in the Dongling mountain range for over a week and couldn't subdue it. Yet, he simply waved his hands and the Heavenly Hound ran over to him. Everyone here feels the same way. Even the Sacred Soul sect worked hard for a long time for it. This Heavenly Hound is also fearful of the strong. We tried to lure it, and it simply ignored us. Now, it ran over to that guy who just waved at it. The crowd was speechless. For this Inborn realm level Heavenly Hound, they had worked hard for several days and paid a huge price. In the end, they only got a few strands of dog's fur. However, the masked man just waved his hands and the Heavenly Hound ran over. Comparison indeed made one feel inferior. Search the information. Also, comb the base of the dark Conjurers. Wang Xian tapped the Heavenly Hound's head and ordered Mo Qinglong and group. Yes, young master. The group nodded and replied. Wang Xian moved and arrived at the bottom of the lake with the Heavenly Hound. The glass under the lake had broken and the base was flooded. Only the outline of the base remained. The Heavenly Hound was protected by the water attribute energy. It looked curiously around him and barked a few times. Wang Xian let out a smile as he moved to the two blood pythons. The two Inborn realm blood pythons were bred by the dark Conjurers through witchcraft. They didn't have intelligence and only had bloodthirst. This type of animal did not have potential, and it would be hard for them to evolve again. However, once they were able to manifest their intelligence and cleanse their bloodline, they could evolve again. From blood pythons into serpents, and finally into divine dragons. Wang Xian kept the two blood pythons mainly to subdue them to become his subordinates. Submit? Wang Xian moved his finger and 2 drops of essence blood fell onto the head of the blood pythons for them to absorb. The 2 blood pythons were severely injured and couldn't resist it as they absorbed the essence blood directly. SSS, SSS, SSS. As they absorbed the essence blood into their bodies, the pythons spat balls of blood out. This blood was dark and sticky with corrosive nature. Pythons have the attributes of earth. I shall impart to you the cultivation method of the Earth Divine Dragon. Wang Xian thought to himself as he etched the cultivation arts directly into the minds of the pythons. Afterwards, Wang Xian looked at the Heavenly Hound and forced out a drop of his essence blood too. Woof woof. The Heavenly Hound barked. It stared hard at the drop of blood on Wang Xian's finger before flicking out its tongue and absorbing it. This rascal! Wang Xian smiled but frowned shortly after. He was bewildered as he looked at the Heavenly Hound. What's going on? He was astonished as he stared at the Heavenly Hound. Woof! In the beginning, the Heavenly Hound was still staring at Wang Xian. However, its body started to shiver violently as if it was experiencing a seizure. Woo-woo-woo. Deep cries of agony sounded. Its fur became more lustrous and had a faint glow to it. Gradually, the Heavenly Hound stopped crying. The Heavenly Hound shook its head lightly and rubbed his head against Wang Xian enthusiastically. Wang Xian realized that when the Heavenly Hound moved, its fur stood up like wings. He touched the Heavenly Hound's body and realized that there was flesh growing in places where the fur was longer. A hound with wings? This rascal assimilated my bloodline to strengthen its bloodline. Wang Xian was shocked as he looked at the hound and fell into deep thought. Chapter 293, To the Fore on a Python. During this period, Wang Xian had gained some understanding of his essence blood of the divine dragon. The essence blood was able to assimilate the bloodlines of most living organisms. But it also had a limitation. It was unable to assimilate bloodlines with a grade higher than itself, or those coming from an organism with stronger powers. Amongst all living organisms, the bloodline of the divine dragon was considered as the apex. Yet, as the current abilities of Wang Xian were still too weak, the energy stored in his essence blood remained low. Hence, the attempt to replace bloodlines of a relatively high grade would impose some difficulty. As for the experts whose abilities far supersede Wang Xian's, not only would his essence blood be unable to evolve the party's bloodline, it would be absorbed by the party for energy intake. For the divine dragon which leads the pinnacle, a drop of its blood was enough to turn an ordinary creature into a powerful monster instantly. It appears that this heavenly hound possesses an extraordinary bloodline, Wang Xian exclaimed as he stared at the hound, slightly taken aback. This heavenly hound happened to be the first, which was able to absorb Wang Xian's essence blood and convert it as energy intake. But even so, the essence blood contained the consciousness of Wang Xian. Hence, this heavenly hound would still be under his control, having absorbed his essence blood. The abilities of the heavenly hound would have to reach a substantial level before it could free itself from Wang Xian's control, by which Wang Xian's abilities would also improve immensely as well. Young master, we've got hold of the information, but most of the things have been completely destroyed, along with the death of the dark conjurers, Wang Xian was told, as Imo Qinglong approached together with Imo Yuan and others. Did you find information on the missions as ordered by the dark conjurers? Wang Xian asked in response. After all, they had come to annihilate the dark conjurers for a reason, mainly to find the culprit who ordered to have Imo Ersan and Imo Sanyi killed. Yes, we did, Imo Qinglong and the rest replied. Good. Let's return then. Wang Xian nodded back. In quick shuffles, they surfaced from the lake. Swoosh! 2 giant pythons, each reaching between 15 to 16 meters in length, followed closely behind. With thick and muscular bodies, the serpents imposed terror. Come on, let's head for the seaside. Wang Xian gestured to Imo Qinglong and the rest. As he did so, he hopped onto the crown of a python's head. The head of one giant python measured 2 meters across, which could hold a person standing atop comfortably. Whereas Imo Qinglong, Imo Yuan, and the remaining stood on the python's body instead. Measuring between 15 to 16 meters, these giant pythons would more than suffice in transporting the 10 men. On the other hand, the heavenly hound appeared somewhat fearful, as it skipped gently over to Wang Xian's side. Go! Wang Xian instructed the 2 pythons. TSK, TSK. The serpents hissed, tongues of over a meter sticking out as they did. Nodding their heads in acknowledgement, they glided at charging speeds. By then, the troop forces who were previously at the lake's side had long gone. There was no one in sight. The giant pythons were no less imposing in size, even as they glided amidst vast mountains, bringing down trees 7 to 8 meters in height. They eventually went past mountains and across rivers. And they continued surging forward in an imposing strike. Impressive yet domineering all at once. Meanwhile, disciples of the various forces who had just left chatted casually as they walked on the mountain. Sigh. It would have been great if only we'd gotten hold of the heavenly hound. Imagine riding on it for leisure. How impressive would that be? One imagined. You riding the heavenly hound? Why don't you check on your powers? Even if it was captured, do you think a heavenly hound of the Inborn level would allow itself to be ridden at will? Even if an Inborn expert wished to have a ride, the hound may not concede to it. Another retorted. Then should I wait for the heavenly hound to give birth and ride on one of the puppies after raising it myself? The former teased. Upon hearing the disciples' conversation, a few experts walking in front laughed. When inborn beings reproduce, the bloodline of its offsprings will thin. Even so, its abilities would not weaken significantly. Should it display symptoms of reversed evolution, it may even grow up to become an Inborn, one explained. Which explains why so many powerful forces are out to vie for one Inborn-level creature, mainly to get hold of them for their offspring. Another chipped in. But Inborn beings possess an innate arrogance. Unless one has been raised from youth, it would be very tough for anyone who wishes to ride on one. A third added. Boom, boom. The elders had just finished, when a series of sounds echoed from a distance behind them. It sounded horrifying, as though a tank had bulldozed past the grounds and was charging towards them. Watch out, an expert amongst the sects warned. His forehead trickled cold sweat as he sensed the force of terror coming for them. Out of the way, quick! Out of the way! The crowd shouted. They spun around and looked behind with vigilance. Just then, two gigantic creatures appeared. Crowned with hideous heads and creepy eyes, they stuck out barn-red tongues from their wide mouths. Goodness! A female disciple cried out. She looked on, eyes wide. With a stupefied face, she yelled, "Up there! There are people up there! Giant pythons! Terrifying giants! Out to trample everything!" Some of her fellows lamented. "This is unbelievable," more said. "The abyss! It's the abyss! And the heavenly hound!" They continued. The two giant pythons were charging at top speed, along with the 10 men riding on them. As Wang Xian heard the ruckus, he turned around, revealing a faint smile. Meanwhile, the heavenly hound exuded an air which overpowered the nearby crowd. Woof, woof. Howl. It barked excitedly at the onlooking crowd, even mimicking a fox and ending off with a howl. How awe-inspiring. Filled with envy, the crowd of disciples looked on at the group of python riders that just went past. What the? That's so awesome. Riding to the fore on a python, how cool is that? An onlooker squealed. When will it be that I achieve that? Another yelped. Those are no doubt true experts, sighed the experts amongst the crowd, even as they were of the same status themselves. Hence, with 10 people on board, the two giant pythons raced straight ahead, towards the Dongling mountain range. Along the way, martial artists from different sects simply stared when they came across the spectacular sight, faces filled with astonishment. Carrying all aboard, the giant pythons dived into the sea. Wang Xian transformed into a divine dragon, and together the group made their way towards River Town. After 5 hours, Wang Xian arrived at the villa's doorstep. Overwhelmed in excitement, the heavenly hound shook off the seawater on its body and proceeded to check out its surroundings. Despite its moderate size, the hound boasted greater intelligence. "Let's go," Mo Yuan said. He then took his leave with the 7 Dragonians, leaving Wang Xian and Mo Qinglong to return to the villa. "Young master, let me go look up information on the murderer," Mo Qinglong reported. With a hard drive in hand, he proceeded to enter a computer room. All information on the dark conjurers was stored on a desktop. Wang Xian nodded in approval before plunking onto the sofa, looking all laid back. Woof woof. As it strolled around, curious about its surroundings, the heavenly hound let out a bark. "Come over here. Could you transform your appearance a little?" Wang Xian said to the hound as he waved to it. The appearance of the heavenly hound was known by many. Should it be discovered here, it would be easy for others to figure out its ties with the abyss. Woof, woof. The heavenly hound barked in response before its fur started to change in color, turning all gold. Chapter 294. Hold the plane and move 1. Xiaoxian has been away for several days and is finally back. I wonder, did he bring any beautiful girls back this time? Every time he returns, he brings one back. At 5 in the evening, Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue's voices sounded from outside the house. Wang Xian, who was drinking tea and lying on the sofa in the living room, was speechless. "Brother," Xiao Yu shouted as she entered through the door. "Your brother is here." Wang Xian stood up and answered with a smile as he saw the 4 beauties walking in. "Wah, Xiao Yu and the girls shouted in amazement and hurried over. Wang Xian smiled gently as the side of his mouth lifted. He thought his charm had gotten stronger. What a beautiful dog. It is so cute. Look at its eyes. They're glittering. It must be a smart dog. Its fur is so smooth and feels so great. The three of them were surprised and delighted as they caressed the heavenly hound. Even Elder Fong bent down and was looking at the dog lovingly. Wang Xian felt aggrieved. He didn't expect to be less popular than a dog. Woof woof. Heavenly Hound barked twice and squinted its eyes. It remained stationary and allowed the girls to touch him. Cough cough. Did you guys miss me? Wang Xian coughed as he squeezed out a smile. Hee hee. Brother, you have been running around every day. It's great that you still know to come back. Perhaps the world outside is much more exciting. Xiao Yu and Guan Shuqing mocked at him. Wang Xian laughed it off and said, I went out to settle some things. Look at this big family. I need to work hard to feed all of you. TSK. Excuses. Although Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue were still mocking and grumbling about him, it was clear that they had missed him after not seeing him for several days. The group sat on the sofa and chatted. My dear disciple, has school ended? Soon, the voice of Sui Huang came from outside, after which, the group saw him walking in with Xiao Ran. Master, Guan Shuqing greeted with a bright smile. Oh, Brother Wang Xian is back. Sui Huang greeted Wang Xian when he saw him. Sui Huang had a bright smile on his face. Yeah, Wang Xian replied with a nod. Master, Xiao Ran greeted and walked over joyously. At this moment, Sui Huang was shocked to see the heavenly hound lying in a corner. Hey, brother, it seems like you got something good on this trip. Inborn realm heavenly hound has only appeared once in history. He stared at the heavenly hound and spoke with a smile. Woof woof. The heavenly hound barked at him ferociously when it heard his words. It was apparent that the heavenly hound, who had intelligence, disliked what the Sui Huang had said. I was just lucky, Wang Xian replied with a smile. Xiao Yu and the group were shocked as they looked at the heavenly hound. Their eyes widened as they asked, this dog is an inborn realm existence. Yes, Wang Xian smiled and replied with a nod. He then looked at Xiao Yu and Guan Shuqing and said, the dog is an inborn realm existence and I won't be giving it to you guys. Instead, I will give it to Qingyue and let the heavenly hound stay by her side. At this point, Xiao Yu's strength was considerably good. As for Guan Shuqing, she had Sui Huang with her and thus wouldn't be in any danger. As for Lan Qingyue, even though her 8 extraordinary meridians were cleared, she was still rather weak. Having the heavenly hound to protect her would make Wang Xian feel more assured. Is it true? Lan Qingyue was ecstatic when she heard Wang Xian. She looked at Wang Xian with affectionate eyes. Of course, Wang Xian smiled. Xiao Yu and Guan Shuqing both smiled and didn't say anything. Among the three of them, only Lan Qingyue needed to be protected. That's great. What's its name? Heavenly Hound isn't a good name. I will call it Tian Tian. Hee hee. Not bad, not bad. Lan Qingyue walked beside the heavenly hound happily and started rubbing its head. She was overjoyed. Oh yes, disciple. Now that Brother Wang Xian is here, could you go to the capital with me? Asked Sui Huang. The objective of going to the capital was to hold the disciple acceptance ceremony for the Sui family. As a family with a deep history, taking in a disciple was a matter of importance. The ceremony was also seen as extremely important. It was especially so for someone of Sui Huang's level. At the same time, this would be a significant event for the Sui family. The strongest man in the Sui family would be taking in his last disciple. Seeing Guan Shuqing looking at him, Wang Xian nodded in agreement. Since Sui Huang would like to have a disciple acceptance ceremony, he had no qualms with it. I will go with you when the time arrives, said Wang Xian. He looked at Xiao Yu and Lan Qingyue who were at the side and asked, do you all want to go to Shangjing to have fun for a few days? That would be great. That was what we are thinking too. Xiao Yu and Lan Qingyue nodded in agreement immediately. They had smiles written all over their faces. All right, old Sui. When will we go over? Wang Xian asked with a smile. Tomorrow? I have chosen an auspicious time and date. Let's head to Shangjing first, replied Sui Huang with a bright smile. All right. In that case, we will set off tomorrow morning. I haven't been to Shangjing before. Let's enjoy ourselves in the capital, said Wang Xian while nodding his head. Haha, in the capital, you guys can play all you want. That's my territory, and everyone will have to show me some respect. Shaoqing, as my disciple, you can do whatever you wish in Shangjing, Sui Huang said with dominance. He looked at Wang Xian and lifted his head slightly. It's about time he showed this rascal what he was capable of. The group was conversing happily as Wang Xian brought Xiao Ran to the side to assess his strength. To his astonishment, Xiao Ran had reached level 8 martial artist over this period of time. That was an astonishing pace. However, when he heard that all the spiritual medicine was used by Sui Huang, he felt a little speechless. As an alchemist, Sui Huang had made use of elixir pills to help Xiao Ran and Guan Shuqing improve their level. This old man still has his own methods. Wang Xian was glad. Even he could not improve a person's strength this rapidly. The next day morning, Wang Xian, Guan Shuqing, Xiao Yu and Lan Qingyue followed Sui Huang to the capital. The ceremony will be held tomorrow. Xiao Qing, you should get ready. The process is simple and is mainly to announce to the rest that I'll be taking a disciple. When you reach Shangjing today, you can enjoy yourself as you want. There are a lot of interesting places in Shangjing. Sui Huang happily lay down on his seat in the plain as he smiled and spoke to Guan Shuqing. He was glad to be able to take a disciple like her. Finally, he had someone to pass his skills down to. This was also a form of insurance for his Sui family. Yes, master. Guan Shuqing smiled and answered. The distance between Rivertown and Shangjing wasn't far. It would just take 2 hours by plane. Boom. However, when the plane was approaching the Shangjing airport, a loud explosion erupted. Chapter 295. Hold the plane and move. 2. Boom. D. Wang Xian and the gang were lying down, taking a rest on the plane when a buzzing sound was heard unexpectedly. Soon after, the emergency alarm went off on the plane. What's going on? What happened? What happened? Why did the alarm go off suddenly? Did we meet with some extreme weather? The passengers stood up immediately, looking panicky as they asked the air stewardess beside them as loud as they could. Fasten your seatbelt. Please, fasten your seatbelt and stay calm. There was slight anxiety in her eyes, but she calmed herself down and yelped at the top of her lungs. Bam, bam, bam. Ah! At this time, a louder grinding sound was heard while the plane rocked twice again. Please fasten your seatbelts. We're in an emergency situation, and we're in the midst of resolving it. All passengers, please stay calm. Just then, the entire plane was filled with the voice of the flight attendants. Hurry, stop them now. At the same time, 5 security personnel on the plane sprinted past Wang Xian and the gang's seats, looking appalled. What's the matter? Hijacking? Or? Wang Xian sat up puzzledly as he peered towards the back. They were sitting in the first-class seats, and there should be more first-class seats in the back. He looked over his shoulder at Sui Huang. Boom. Just then, another booming sound was heard again. Ah, are we going to be all right? What the hell is going on? The passengers were screaming in horror from the front. Someone is fighting on the plane? When Sui Huang heard the sound, his expression changed slightly as he unfastened his seat belt immediately with a sullen face. You guys stay here while old Sui and I will check it out. Wang Xian immediately stood up and spoke to Xiao Yu and the rest. Okay. Those girls were wondering as they peered at the back. Gentlemen, please go back. We'll take care of this, and we'll settle it soon. When the air stewardess saw them standing up, she quickly told them this anxiously. We'll just take a look. Old Sui took out an identification card emotionlessly and showed it to the air stewardess. She was stunned as soon as she saw the identification card. Yes, chief leader. Her. Wang Xian peered over with a bizarre look. That red identification card seemed terrific. If you want one, I can get you one next time. Upon seeing Wang Xian's puzzled look, a smile surfaced on Sui Huang's face. Let's go. Wang Xian shook his head and continued his way in. Get lost. I must kill him today. When they arrived at another first-class cabin, a figure suddenly flew over. There was no change in Wang Xian's expression. He even reached out to catch the security personnel who spat out blood from his mouth. Thinking of killing me? Since I dared to kill your son, I can even kill you now. Haha, come over and kill me. A bossy voice, accompanied by daunting oppression, was heard. Ah, another pained shriek was heard. Boom. Another loud bang was heard, sending the entire plane rocking violently. An air stewardess even stumbled to the side. There was a slight change in Sui Huang's expression. When the two of them went in, they realized two experts were fighting on the plane. The entire first-class cabin was in a disastrous state. Two commoners were knocked down on the floor at the side with their faces covered in blood. No one was sure if they were dead or alive. The security personnel on the plane were all lying on the floor. There were another 7 to 8 men around the two experts, confronting each other. On one side of the plane, a strong gust of wind was entering through two fist-sized holes. It was looking the worst in the cockpit. Both the pilot and the co-pilot were flying the plane in extreme fear. Boom! As they entered, the two Inborn experts started another round of intense fighting again. Ka. The plane could not take the magnitude of the power exhibited by two Inborn experts. As such, the hole began to tear even wider. It became a 2.5-meter wide hole with strong wind rushing in, causing the entire plane to shake violently. Back in the cockpit, several flight attendants fell to the ground. The mightiness of an Inborn expert was not something an average person could withstand. Stop it. Sui Huang swept his gaze across everyone in the plane with a somber expression. He encompassed the duo with his inborn oppression. What? The duo in the battle was taken aback as they quickly spun around and looked at Sui Huang. How dare you duel on the plane? Are you tired of living? Sui Huang walked over to the duo with darkened expressions. Scram! One of the middle-aged men bellowed at Sui Huang with bloodshot eyes. Soon after, he turned to another middle-aged man. If I'm going to die today, I'll make sure to drag you down along with me. You alone? Trying to drag me with you? Hee. Since you struck on the plane this time, you're doomed. Another skinny middle-aged man quirked his lips and looked at him soberly. You struck too. Even if I cannot kill you, you'll die too. So long as you're dead, my revenge is made. The middle-aged man said as he revealed a bitter smile on his face. A blood feud they had. Heh, my dad will not die. You'll die a horrible death instead. This trivial matter can be easily taken care of by the Feng family. Haha. The other middle-aged man did not reply, but a young man with a conceited look behind him spoke. Xiao Jing, he's a dying man. Ignore him. An old man spoke nonchalantly behind that skinny middle-aged man. Beside him stood another two elders. Three of them turned and looked at Sui Huang. Haha, fine. I'll not mind a lunatic. If you continue, the entire plane is going down. Then I'll advise you to commit suicide by jumping off the plane. The skinny middle-aged man nodded with a smile as he stared at the middle-aged man in front of him without fear. Old Sui, I thought you were cocky? Why is everyone ignoring you? Wang Xian swept his gaze across the group of people. The two middle-aged men in a duel were inborn experts. Three old men behind the skinny middle-aged man were also inborn experts. I only returned to Shangjing twice or thrice in 20 years. Many people have forgotten about me. Eyes turned cold. Sui Huang had not displayed his full mightiness just now because he was afraid he might affect the electronic equipment in the aircraft. He slowly swept his gaze across the skinny middle-aged man and his gang. Feng family of Shangjing. I have heard of it before. I'll deal with this lad. But the rest of you deserve to die. Sui Huang looked at the five of them and spoke slowly. He had announced their sanctions immediately. After Sui Huang finished his sentence, the skinny middle-aged man turned to Sui Huang and said, Her? Old fogey. Before he could finish his words, Sui Huang extended out his arm. 5 fiery palms immediately reached out and grabbed the skinny middle-aged man and the rest of the people behind him. For a long time, no one has dared to call me Sui Huang that. Chapter 296, Hold the Plane and Move 3. For a long time, no one dared to call me Sui Huang that. Sui Huang remarked emotionlessly, after which 5 palms made of flames grabbed their necks tightly. What? The skinny middle-aged man and the several old men behind him were instantly petrified. The palms made of flames appeared on their necks suddenly. They did not have any time to react to it. To their horror, they realized they couldn't break free from the palms. However, what really frightened them the most was what the old man had just said. Sui Huang. Sui Huang. He said his name was Sui Huang. All large families and sects would know what this name represented. That name belonged to one of the most horrifying old men in Shangjing. Sui Huang, how did we? Spare me your nonsense. Coldness gleamed in Sui Huang's eyes. When he moved his arm, the palms made of flames moved. Crack, crack. The 5 men's eyes widened and were filled with disbelief. Their bodies trembled violently as they fell to the ground. They weren't even feeling remorseful at all. Bam! Read more chapter on novel full. Sui Huang, Sui Huang. The other middle-aged man mumbled. Suddenly, his eyes widened and he kneeled in front of Sui Huang. Thank you, Sui Huang. Thank you, Sui Huang. They are finally dead. I can now die without regrets. The middle-aged man was very agitated and his face was filled with tears, after which he gritted his teeth and was about to smash his palm on his head. Bam! Sui Huang kicked his arms away to prevent him from committing suicide. He then said, whether you deserve death will be determined later. For now, seal the 2 holes for me. Yes, yes. Even if you want me dead now, I wouldn't grumble about it. That middle-aged man kneeled and kowtowed before Sui Huang. He stood up and waved his arms. Instantly, a stream of energy blocked the cracks of the plane. Brother Wang Xian, you are a miracle doctor. Can you help to treat the injured? Sui Huang asked Wang Xian after shooting the middle-aged man a death stare. All right, Wang Xian smiled and replied with a nod. This old fogey, Sui Huang, is pretty domineering. Wang Xian looked around him, squatted down, and injected streams of azure dragon energy into those with injuries. Soon, they recovered. Chief Leader, can you take a look at the pilots? They have lost consciousness. An aircrew member spoke to Sui Huang frantically. At this moment, the alarm system of the plane continued to sound. Let me take a look, Wang Xian replied as he walked over to the cockpit. The cockpit was damaged by the fight between the 2 sides, and a large hole was left in it. The pilots had collapsed inside the cockpit. Wang Xian walked over and was stunned. He frowned, turned to Sui Huang and said, they're beyond hope. What? Sui Huang was shocked and turned solemn. What? Sir, are they really beyond hope? The aircrew members and security asked in fear. They are gone, Wang Xian replied and shook his head. One of the aircrew members rushed to the controls and picked up the radio. Mayday! Mayday! Flight number A934J from Rivertown toward Shangjing. The pilots on board have encountered danger, requesting immediate support. Mayday! Mayday! Flight number A934J from Rivertown toward Shangjing. The pilots on board have encountered danger, requesting immediate support. The aircrew member was sweating as he called for help. This is bad. Soon, that aircrew member pressed a few buttons and realized something had gone wrong. He shouted frantically, "The radio is out! The radio is out!" There are problems with other action keys too. It's over. It's over. That aircrew member became even more flustered as he shouted loudly. What's the matter? Sui Huang frowned and shouted, "Calm down." Hoo. The aircrew member took a few deep breaths and replied, "The pilot is dead, and so is the secondary pilot." There's no one who can control the plane now. Furthermore, some equipment is damaged. We? Tears streamed down from his eyes as he spoke. Let me ask, an air stewardess said fearfully. She picked up the announcement system and said with a trembling voice, calling for all passengers. Our plane has encountered a major incident. Is there anyone who knows how to fly a plane? She continued, if there is, please come over to the cockpit immediately. This concerns the lives of everyone. The air stewardess repeated the announcement several times, and her voice sounded throughout the plane. What? Who knows how to fly a plane? Who knows how to fly a plane? Get to the cockpit immediately. Oh gosh, the plane is diving downwards. Mom, I don't want to die. It's finished. Who knows how to fly a plane? Please get to the cockpit quickly. The plane has deviated from its path and is slanting down now. I don't want to die. I still have a family. My children. When the passengers heard the air stewardess's announcement, panic broke out. However, no one stood up. In this era, a pilot wasn't common. Is there anyone who knows how to fly a plane? Please come to the cockpit immediately. We are facing a major crisis. The announcement sounded again. However, there was still no one who stood up. Panic started sprouting in everyone's heart. Make a call. Contact the headquarters to see if there are any signals. Sui Huang frowned and said. Mobile phones were prohibited on the plane. However, at this moment, he couldn't care less. The high-speed movements will affect the signals. Nonetheless, we can give it a try. One of the aircrew members replied hurriedly. He then took out his phone and called. We are flight number N934J. We are experiencing a major incident, requesting for headquarters aid. The aircrew member called and shouted hurriedly. Bees easy. From the other end of the phone, an unstable buzzing noise sounded. It's not working. The signals are unstable when flying at high speeds. The message isn't getting through. This isn't working. It's over. We are just 3 minutes away from the airport. However, the plane is totally out of control and we can't possibly land it properly. The plane is going to crash. The emergency equipment is malfunctioning as well. Fear gripped the members of the aircrew as they shouted frantically. They were out of their means. Based on the current trend, the plane would be crashing. At this moment, the command center of Shangjing Airport had also realized that they had lost contact with Flight A934J. Leader, Flight A934J is still uncontactable. According to the normal flight schedule, they are just 3 minutes away from landing. Leader, we have turned on satellite tracking. We found a plane flying abnormally. Leader, we received an emergency call from Flight A934J. However, the voices were constantly interrupted and we couldn't hear anything. Hurry up. Lock down on their position with satellite and identify the problem they are facing. Continue to contact them. We definitely must establish contact with them. At this moment, the various leaders from the airline were commanding frantically. If something was to happen to the plane, the repercussions on the airline would be grave. If there were a lot of casualties, even the higher management of the airline would need to bear the responsibilities. Oh gosh, Flight A945J is totally out of control and is spiraling down. One of the staff members shouted desperately at this moment. All the management members from the airline looked up. A plane was barreling towards the ground at an astonishing speed. Everyone trembled and was frightened. Dear passengers, I would like to inform you of an unfortunate piece of news. The plane will crash in 3 minutes. We will try our best to force an emergency landing. Please pray for us. At this moment, a desolating piece of news was broadcasted through the announcement system. No, don't. How did this happen? I don't want to die. I want to make a call. I still have words for my wife and my children. The passengers screamed in fear. Some passengers turned on their phones and tried to convey their last words to their loved ones. The air stewardesses did not stop them. Instead, they did the same and started drafting their messages. They were in complete despair. Everyone felt hopeless. If the plane crashed, how many of them could possibly survive? Everyone in the cockpit squatted down in despair, and their bodies couldn't help but tremble. These few rascals, only causing troubles for others. Sui Huang was gloomy and clenched his fist tightly. How far are we from the airport now? Wang Xian frowned and asked one of the air crews at the side. We are roughly 15 kilometers away. Boom. As the aircrew spoke, the plane started turning. The group fell and rolled towards the far end. Over 10 kilometers. Wang Xian had a gloomy expression as he looked at the control system. He then pulled the red valve on the end. Rumble. With the propulsion system stopped, the plane fell straight down. Haze, old Sui. Let's give it a try. Wang Xian smiled as he spoke calmly to old Sui who was beside him. Huh. Sui Huang was stunned. Soon, he nodded and smiled. If I was alone, I wouldn't be confident in doing this. Since it is the both of us, I am confident. Haha. All right then. Landing in Shangjing in this manner wouldn't be a great thing to look back at, said Wang Xian while shaking his head. After which, he smashed the window in front of him and jumped out of the plane. Haha. Landing in Shangjing in this manner will be the best way for you to remember your trip here. Sui Huang laughed and followed behind him. The two of them came to the bottom of the plane. They exchanged glances, smiled, stretched out their arms, and slowly pushed against the plane. Chapter 297. Like God, like devil. Boom. The plane whistled in the air as the entire 40-meter-long aircraft started crushing down uncontrollably. A booming, ear-rending sound and the screams from passengers on the plane were heard all over the entire aircraft. Huh. Yet two soft bellows were coming from the bottom of the plane. Boom. Wang Xian and Sui Huang jerked their bodies, and two large pairs of wings sprang into action on their backs. Fiery red just like the color of the blood. Sui Huang's pair of wings that resembled lava stones emerged from both sides. As the two gigantic wings spread out, they spanned across around 10 meters, which looked terrifying. A gentle flap would bring about freaky high temperatures. If it was not for his intended protection, the aircraft could have burst into flames. The wings behind Sui Huang were totally out of their league, compared with those experts of fire god denomination back then. Behind Wang Xian was a pair of fiery red wings too. The energy of the Dragon Ball could transform into a pair of dragon or phoenix wings. The huge wings may not be as big as Sui Huang's, but they had also reached 7 meters. Besides, the wings behind Wang Xian were more agile and flexible. Flapping them gently would exude the domineering power of Divine Dragon. Boom, boom. Read more chapter on novel full. Both men raised their hands and exchanged a glance with smiles on their faces. Another booming sound from the aircraft was heard, but this time, the plane stopped itself from crashing down. With the help of the two powerful forces, the plane came to an abrupt halt and eerily suspended itself in the air without moving. Ah, what's going on? Why did the plane stop moving? Did the plane recover? Is it fixed? Is the danger over? Is it over? At this moment, the flight passengers had no clue about what was going on under the plane when they witnessed such an incredible scene. Their eyes were agape. Some of them had tears on their faces as they asked in a panic. Even the staff on the plane was puzzled. Could it be that chief leader and that young man? Some of the staff were in a daze back in the cockpit. When the two of them had jumped out of the plane, they were feeling hopeless and had lost all concerns. Yet, the plane had come to a halt strangely in the air. All of them could not help but gulp. We still have hope. The chief leader and that young man were powerful ancient martial artists. A glimmer of excitement flashed in the eyes of a staff member as he spoke, quivering. Yes, we're safe. We're safe. That's wonderful. Bravo. The staff in the cockpit began to look animated. Dear passengers, the plane is now stable. Do not panic. Keep calm. We'll be landing safely. A flight attendant quickly consoled all the passengers in the cabin through the sound system. What? The plane is stable? Great. I thought I was going to die. Haha, wonderful. Wonderful. We're still alive. When the passengers heard the voice of the staff on the plane, they were zestful. The excitement of the aftermath was reflected in everyone's faces. Wow, strong and domineering prowess. Is this the strength of Sui Huang? The middle-aged Inborn expert was using his power to block the hole in the first-class cabin. When he witnessed the gigantic fiery wings, he was astounded. Using their physical bodies, they lifted and secured the entire plane. Another 10 kilometers away. Let's go. With a shout from Wang Xian, Sui Huang made a swift move as he gazed ahead, flapping his wings slightly. Haha, go. The two of them carried the plane and slowly flew off. With the two people carrying an aircraft that weighed nearly 100 tons in the air, their speed was not fast, but maintained 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. Oh my God. Incredible. Crazy. This is crazy. All the staff stopped their work at the headquarters of Shangjing Airport as they were shocked to see what the satellite had captured on screen. Everyone, with their eyes wide open, stared at the monitor in disbelief. Two people with gigantic wings were carrying the entire aircraft in the air. Such a breathtaking scene that seemed godlike struck everyone dumbfounded. They were flying at an incredible speed even with the plane on their backs. Were they even humans? They were simply like a god or devil. The executives of high management of the airline back at the headquarters were staring blankly at the screen. Quick! Organize all the planes at the airport now to allow ample time for that plane to land. Hurry, get the staff to settle this. Also, get the security personnel and seal off the landing area of that plane. One of the executives quickly ordered the surrounding staff. Yes? Great. How wonderful to have powerful experts to carry the entire plane with their physical bodies. We managed to tide through this crisis. That's great. Some of the executives exclaimed elatedly and continued to give orders. Keep the radio on. Since the plane is now landing, get hold of A934J and ask what was going on, and contact the two mighty experts. Yes. The plane was propelled by the powerful force of Wang Xian and Sui Huang. 10 minutes later, Shangjing Airport appeared in front of them. People are guiding us below. Let's go down. Sui Huang peered somewhere below and saw a few staff members waving red flags, signaling to them. Go. Wang Xian made a swift move, and the wings behind his back disappeared. If his wings were still around at this time, he would be in the limelight. Sui Huang also withdrew his pair of wings as they lifted the plane while walking in the air. Gulp. The surrounding security personnel and the airline executive below swallowed their saliva. Two experts supported an aircraft, walking in the air. That seemed just like what deities would do. Boom. An aircraft that weighed 100 tons was put down gently on the runway by two experts as everyone watched astoundedly. Gosh, they're godlike humans. The airline executives ran towards them with fear and respect. They bowed their bodies as though they had met deities. Hello, two experts. Thank you very much. They did not know how to address them as they spoke frightfully. Okay, I'll leave you guys to handle the remaining matters. Sui Huang was impatient as he saw the people from the airline. He took out his red identification card and waved to them. What? When they saw that card, their eyes could not help but narrow. All the more respect they had for him. Yes, Chief Leader. The group of airline executives responded loudly in fear and trepidation. Chapter 298, 2 Senior. Xiao Xian. Master. Beside the plane, Xiao Yu, Guan Shuqing, and Lan Qingyue had just alighted from the plane when they saw Wang Xian and Sui Huang. They immediately called out to them. Xiao Xian, what happened to the plane? The group of girls walked over and asked Wang Xian. Two Inborn experts had a quarrel and implicated the pilots in the process. Wang Xian explained in a simplified manner. So that's what happened. I thought someone hijacked the plane, said Xiao Yu with a smile. Sui Huang. At this moment, the middle-aged man, who'd had a conflict with the other Inborn experts on the plane, rushed over and greeted Sui Huang with horror. I'll investigate this matter clearly. You can go back and wait for my updates, said Sui Huang plainly. Yes, Sui Huang. The middle-aged man nodded his head respectfully before leaving. Master, why is everyone calling you by your name? Guan Shuqing walked to her master and asked inquisitively. Hee, there's only one Sui Huang. Sui Huang chuckled proudly. Although his name was Sui Huang, his title was also Sui Huang. Most people would address him by the title. All right, now that you are in your master's territory, have a good rest and time here. Tell me if there's anything you'd like. Haha. Sui Huang smiled and led the group to the exit. Grandpa. When they left the airport, two old men immediately walked over and greeted Sui Huang deferentially. Yeah. Sui Huang revealed a faint smile. He looked at the few black luxury cars ahead before turning to Wang Xian and asking, Brother Wang Xian, are you guys going with me or? Wang Xian pondered for a moment before answering Sui Huang. We would like to walk around the streets of Shangjing first. We will go to your place in the afternoon tomorrow. All right. Sui Huang nodded his head, turned to Guan Shuqing and said, Disciple, if you encounter any problems in Shangjing, just give me a call. Enjoy yourself. All right, Master. Thank you, Master. Guan Shuqing smiled and nodded her head. Hee. Sui Huang responded with a smile, after which he looked to the two old men by the side and instructed, leave a car behind for them. Let's get back. Yes, Grandpa. The two old men nodded their heads immediately, after which they looked to Guan Shuqing and said, Marshal Senior Aunt, feel free to instruct us if you have any needs in Shangjing. Huh. Arg. When Guan Shuqing heard how the two old men addressed her, she was instantly stunned. The two old men were at least 70 years old. Although they had taken great care of their looks, one could still see signs of aging. And now they were addressing her as Marshal Senior Aunt. This instantly shocked Guan Shuqing. Haha, my dear disciple. Based on seniority, these two kids should indeed address you as Marshal Senior Aunt. It will be fine once you get used to it. I'll give you a good introduction tomorrow. Sui Huang laughed loudly and remarked after seeing Guan Shuqing's reactions. All right, Master. Guan Shuqing smiled bitterly and forced a smile at the two old men. Brother Wang Xian, we will leave that car for you. I'll be getting back now for the preparations, commented Sui Huang heartily. All right, old Sui, go and handle your matters. I'll walk around the streets with them. Wang Xian smiled and nodded his head. Goodbye, Marshal Senior Aunt, the two old men said deferentially to Guan Shuqing once again. Goodbye. Guan Shuqing replied quickly. As Sui Huang and the two old men left, Wang Xian was speechless. He turned to Guan Shuqing and asked, Shuqing, how old is Sui Huang, that old fogey? His grandsons are already so old. That's my master. How can you call him an old fogey? Guan Shuqing rolled her eyes at Wang Xian before replying, I've asked my master previously. He told me he has lived for more than 2 jiazi. Oh my god. It's no surprise then. He's still so powerful after 2 jiazi. He should be able to live for another few dozens of years. Wang Xian was shocked. 1 jiazi was equivalent to 60 years. 2 jiazi would mean that Sui Huang was over 120 years old. It's no surprise that the 2 70-plus-year-old men were calling him Grandpa. Incredible, Wang Xian joked. If he could live for another few dozens of years, he would really be a living Buddha. It seems like there won't be people with higher seniority than you in the Sui family in the future. I don't want to have such high seniority. A couple 70, 80-plus old men just addressed me as their Marshal Senior Aunt. Guan Shuqing looked devastated to be called Marshal Senior Aunt by 70, 80-plus-year-old men. If that was the case, those of similar age as her would be calling her Great Marshal Nanny. At the thought of this, Guan Shuqing felt her world was spinning. Sometimes, having too high seniority would be extremely embarrassing. Hee, Shuqing. I think that's pretty cool. Just imagine a group of old men behind you and having to greet you with respect. Lan Qinghua chuckled as she commented. Yeah, sister-in-law. I heard from my master that families with deeper history typically have lots of rules. Considering your seniority, those middle-aged and younger generations might have to kneel down before you. Ha ha ha. It feels incredible just thinking about it. Xiaoyu was visualizing the scene in her mind as she laughed out loud. Forget it. That's not what I want. If you guys like it, you can take my place. Guan Shuqing rolled her eyes at the two girls who were deriving joy from her misery. Haha, let's go. Let's see where the interesting places in Shangjing are. For lunch, let's go get the roasted duck. Wang Xian was laughing at the girls' conversation, but interrupted at this moment. Let's go. Xiao Yu and the group walked towards the car excitedly. It was an extended Bentley with 6 seats, a rather luxurious car. They weren't surprised that a sacred clan could easily come out with cars like this. Imo Qinglong drove the car and brought the group to famous places in Shangjing. Shangjing was known for their roasted ducks. Therefore, they naturally would like to taste it since they were here. At noon, the group toured the Imperial Palace. The group was still full of energy and enthusiasm at night despite having played the whole day. All of them were martial artists. They wouldn't be tired even if they had been touring the whole day. What would you like to have for dinner? Should we eat in the hotel or head out? The Bentley drove on the streets of Shangjing. Wang Xian smiled and asked the few girls around him. As he spoke, he started observing Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue from top to bottom. Oh, Lan Qingyue, I haven't gotten my hands on you. Today will be a good opportunity. We aren't going back to the hotel yet. We have to go to the night market in Shangjing. After visiting the night market, we still have to go to the famous Wang Fu shopping street. Haha, I'm going to go on a frenzy of a shopping spree. Xiao Yu, Lan Qingyue, Guan Shuqing and Elder Fong were thrilled and spoke loudly. We have been shopping for the entire day. Aren't you guys tired? Wang Xian felt a little speechless at their responses. Fatigue is non-existent. We should be enjoying ourselves fully since we are in Shangjing. Xiao Xian, don't think of lazing around. We still need you to carry our bags. Lan Qingyue and Guan Shuqing looked at Wang Xian and gave their orders directly. Wang Xian was speechless. It seemed like he wouldn't be getting his way again tonight. Chapter 299. Call Daddy. 1. Haha, this is nice. Shuqing, try this. This is not bad. Sister-in-law, this is not bad either. Master, have a try. Shangjing, the richest city with the most robust foundation in the country, had the most lively nightlife. Wang Xian was left without a choice except watching the 4 of them buying snacks from various stalls nonstop. They looked happy as they chatted. Yet, they drew attention from countless people along the way. For beauties who were the top-notch existences. Xiao Yu, Lan Qingyue, Guan Shuqing, and Elder Fong were all martial artists with perfect figures. The 4 of them were rather tall, and they gave off a unique vibe. Even in Shangjing, a city never short of pretty babes, the 4 of them could easily overtake any one of them when they walked in a row. Let's go shopping. When the 4 of them arrived at a renowned shopping center in Shangjing, they went in with excitement. Shopping and taking care of their own looks were women's innate tendencies. Even the female inborn experts would not lose this born ability. Finally, they unleashed their born ability by exhibiting an endless amount of energy in shopping. Clothes, accessories, bags, one after another. Soon, Wang Xian and Imo Qinglong were following behind with hands full of bags. They were like henchmen, tagging behind the 4 babes. Wang Xian shook his head. Imagine him and Imo Qinglong being the dignified experts, and they were downgraded to people who carried shopping bags for others for now. The 4 of them shopped till 11 p.m. before they finally had no choice but to stop. They even agreed to go to another shopping mall the next morning for more shopping. Wang Xian, who was behind them, stumbled as he almost fell to the ground. Not that he was feeling tired, but it was too boring for him. He could not understand this kind of pleasure. Here, Xiao Xian, wear this watch tomorrow. Men must have a watch of their own. Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue took out one thing that they bought for him as they spoke with beaming faces. Sure, Wang Xian took it over with a smile. The 2 of them had bought a nice and luxurious watch that cost over 2 million. But he really had no love for the watch. You could imagine that he had to remove his clothes every time he transformed into a dragon. Now, he had another watch that hindered him. If he forgot to take off his watch, that watch would be gone as soon as he transformed. However, he could not turn them down. Let me find a hotel. Xiaoyu fished out her phone and searched for hotels. The hotels in Shangjing were quite popular. By this time, some of the hotels might have been fully booked. The group went into 3 hotels before they found one on the street. This is the street with the famous pubs of Shangjing. Xiaoyu was puzzled as she looked ahead. This street was the most lively place in Shangjing during the night. Women in sexy dresses with pretty and exquisite makeup were all over the street. Sports cars were parked on each side of the road. The rich people in Shangjing were far superior to those in river town. Not even 10 river towns could compare with one Shangjing city. Let's go back to our room and sleep. Xiaoyu swept a glance around and headed to the hotel ahead without much interest. It was a 5-star hotel which was also rather well known. Wang Xian and the gang walked in. As they neared the entrance, Xiaoyu suddenly came to a halt. She looked at the person who stepped out of the sports car with astonishment. What's wrong, Xiaoyu? Asked Wang Xian in surprise. She's Ling Yi. A reply that sounded surprised. Wang Xian was slightly stunned as he turned his attention over and saw a pretty girl. She was surrounded by another 3 young men and babes as they walked into the hotel. She's really Ling Yi. I love her song, Flying. It's motivating. Guan Shuqing and the girls spoke with amazement after they saw her. You shouldn't be too surprised if you see some actors and singers. After all, the best art academy is situated here. Wang Xian smiled. I love her songs. Xiaoyu smiled as she looked at the pretty girl. Wang Xian chuckled as he nodded. Are you going on a star hunt? Let's go. We better get back to our room and sleep. It's late. Fine. Xiaoyu nodded, but she could not stop looking at that pretty girl with curiosity. That singer, Ling Yi, also overheard Xiaoyu's conversation. She exhibited a faint smile as she spoke while leaning on a young man affectionately. 2 presidential suites. Imo Qinglong came to the reception and spoke to the front desk staff. I'm sorry, sir. We're only left with 1 presidential suite. Just 1? Then just nice. The girls can take the room. Both of you can stay in standard rooms. Xiaoyu chuckled as she spoke to Wang Xian. Actually I think I can squeeze in, Wang Xian said with a slight contemplation. Fat chance. Lan Qingyue and Guan Shuqing blushed as they spoke to him. 1 presidential suite and 2 suites. Imo Qinglong told the front desk staff. Sure, sir. That will be a total of $130,000. The staff said with a smile. Imo Qinglong handed his card over immediately. No more presidential suite. Just then, a young man's voice was heard. Sorry, sir. The last one has just been booked, the receptionist said with a smile. Oh, really? The young man raised his eyebrow as he pulled out a card and placed it on the reception counter. The Diamond membership card of your hotel? The Diamond members have priority over others when the room is booked at the same time. The young man spoke indifferently as he smiled at the people beside him. Wang Xian and the gang were stunned as they spun around and looked at the young man. He was around 30 years old. Beside him was the pretty singer, Ling Yi, whom Xiaoyu had mentioned just now. They were the people who had come into the hotel at the same time as them. The front desk staff was placed in a difficult position. Apologetically, she said to the young man, Sorry, sir. I have already swiped their card. So, I'm really sorry. That young man was taken aback with a grumpy look on his face. Babes, can you let us have your room? I can agree to some of your requests, such as autographs and taking photographs. Ling Yi knit her eyebrows slightly as she peered at Xiaoyu, Guan Shuqing, and the rest. Xiaoyu also frowned. She looked at Guan Shuqing and shook her head slowly. I'm sorry, Ling Yi. We have already booked our room. Ling Yi was slightly caught by surprise as bewilderment flashed in her eyes. I can pay for your room as long as you let us have this one. The young man by the side continued to speak. Sorry. Guan Shuqing and the girls shook their heads at the side. Chapter 300. Call Daddy. 2. as Xiaoyu, Guan Shuqing, and the group rejected them. Ling Yi and the young man beside her instantly showed their displeasure. "Hi, beautiful ladies, can you do your idol a favor?" Ling Yi frowned and asked this to Xiaoyu, Guan Shuqing, and the group. Huh. Ling Yi's response made the girls feel speechless, and they found it hilarious. Xiaoyu and Guan Shuqing shook their heads and replied, "We aren't overzealous fangirls. We are sorry. We're going back to our rooms." As they finished their words, they took their room cards from the front counter and prepared to head towards their rooms. Ling Yi was shocked and embarrassed by the actions of these two fans. Wait a minute. At this moment, the young man standing by the side got serious. He tilted his chin up slightly, looked at Xiaoyu and the girls and said, "The rooms aren't yours yet." After commenting, he took out his phone and made a call. "Let's go back and sleep." Wang Xian had been standing by the side, watching them silently. He found the whole incident hilarious and shook his head as he spoke to the girls. Carrying their trophies of the day in his hand, Wang Xian and the group walked towards the elevator. I said, "Stand right there." Seeing that the group had totally ignored him, the young man's face turned gloomy. "I'm calling the manager of this hotel. If you wish to be chased out of your room, feel free to go up right now." Wang Xian stopped in his tracks, turned to the young man and remarked, "Are you a dumbass? Embarrassing yourself over a room?" He couldn't understand how this young man thought. Perhaps he felt he was a notch above others and must stay in the best room. "What did you say?" The hand of the young man holding the phone stiffened as he glared coldly at Wang Xian. "I'm calling you a dumbass. Is there something wrong with your ears?" Xiaoyu pouted, looked at this young man and was speechless about his conduct. "Haha, you dare to reprimand me in Shangjing?" The young man was so angry that he laughed instead. With a sinister smile, he pointed at Wang Xian and shouted loudly. "Indeed, he's just another brat who is too used to being arrogant in Shangjing," commented Wang Xian as he looked at the young man. "Arrogant? Let your daddy tell you this. In Shangjing, your daddy can be as arrogant as he wants." The young man glowered at Wang Xian before looking across the crowd and saying, "These few girls are rather pretty. I'll give you a way out now. Get out of here, or your daddy will show you what is meant by arrogant." He pointed at the group. Young Master Yuan, who is the one who has offended you?" Suddenly, a voice broke the standoff. A few middle-aged men walked in through the entrance of the hotel. From the group, a middle-aged man in a suit was shocked to see what was happening in the hotel as he dashed forward and shouted, "Manager Sun, the service of this place is getting worse and worse. I can't even get a presidential suite here." Seeing Manager Sun running towards him, the young man remarked harshly, "How can this be? How can this be? As long as you want it, we will definitely reserve a room for you unless all the rooms are sold. Otherwise, we would definitely not hold them back or not give them to you." Manager Sun ran forward with a smile to please the young man. "Is it so? In that case, why did your guys give the presidential suites to others when we arrived at the same time? Could it be that this card you gave me is useless?" Young Master Yuan looked at Manager Sun, and the corner of his lips curved into a smirk. "How can this be? How can this be? We will give it to young Master Yuan even if it means not letting anyone else stay in it." Manager Sun put on a pleasing smile once again, following which, he turned around, stared at the front desk attendants and shouted, "What are you guys doing? Can't you handle something so simple? If young Master Yuan wants the presidential suite, give it to him then. Do you guys still want your job?" "Manager, the two attendants stammered and felt bitter. However, they could only swallow their pride as they lowered their heads. "Did you see this? Get out of here now," the young man chided with contempt, looking at Wang Xian and the group. "Scram. Since young Master Yuan wants you to scram, you guys better scram," seconded Manager Sunday. You guys." Xiaoyu, Guan Shuqing and the girls stared furiously at the young man and Manager Sun beside him. They had not expected the manager of the hotel to give away the rooms they had booked to others. Wang Xian's eyebrows knitted together. Mo Qinglong, who was standing by the side, stared at them coldly and clenched his fist lightly. "Good evening, Sirs and ladies. Just as Mo Qinglong was about to strike, a rather desolate figure saw Wang Xian and the group. He was shocked and stunned for a few seconds, after which he immediately rushed ahead. Deep fear gleamed in his eyes. Huh. When the voice of the middle-aged man sounded and he appeared in front of the crowd was taken aback. Manager Sun's eyes popped wide open and he was flabbergasted. It's you. Guan Shuqing looked at the middle-aged man and exclaimed. The middle-aged man looked decadent, just like how he had appeared beside the plane in the day. Miss Good. Good evening. The middle-aged man greeted her in fear once again and looked at Guan Shuqing respectfully. He was still on tenterhooks about what had happened on the plane earlier in the day. After recalling the entire incident, all he felt was fear. His enemies had taken advantage of his easily angered personality as they forced him to strike on the plane. In the end, he almost lost all his rationality as he was shrouded in the desire for vengeance. Subsequently, that horrifying old man, Sui Huang, appeared and killed his arch-enemies with a single strike. Those were 4 inborn experts. As for him, he was still awaiting judgment from the old man after he broke the rules on the plane by fighting. Whether he lived or died fell solely on the words of that old man. With a whole afternoon to calm down, fear started welling up. If he was dead, what would be the outcome for his family and disciples? They probably would be killed by his past opponents. However, just as he was pondering how he could ask the old man to spare his life, he happened to meet this girl. When they alighted from the plane, his mental state was disheveled. Nonetheless, he still remembered clearly how that old man had looked at this girl dotingly. He even called her his disciple. She's the disciple of that old man, and that old man had not taken in any disciple for several dozens of years. If he could convince the disciple of that old man to put in a word for him, his life might be spared. He greeted Guan Shuqing anxiously and bowed sincerely. What? Good evening, Director Zhou? Manager Sun looked at this boss in shock. To his astonishment, the boss was bowing down to one of the girls that he had just tried to chase out of the hotel a while ago. Bam! The middle-aged man swung a slap over and chided. You better watch your words closely next time. This is my last warning for you. Yes, Director Zhou. Manager Sun staggered back a few steps. His face swelled up instantly as he answered in horror. And you guys, get out of my hotel, and you are banned from entering in the future. The middle-aged man looked coldly at young Master Yuan. Hee, you guys deserve it. When Guan Shuqing, Xiao Yu and the group saw the situation, they smiled. Chapter 301. Called Daddy. 3. Zhou Qingkong, are you sure you want me to scram? The middle-aged man slapped cold words on that young man, embarrassing him instantly. The young man looked malevolent as he glared at Zhou Qingkong. Zhou Qingkong squinted his eyes slightly as he peered at that young man with flickering eyes. Subsequently, he clenched his teeth to show his determination. I said, get lost, and you better do it now. Fuck you, Zhou Qingkong. Do you think I'm scared of you just because you're an inborn expert? Feng family didn't annihilate you, so you want Yuan family to do it? The young man burst into outrage as soon as he heard Zhou Qingkong. He pointed at him and chided with an extremely arrogant attitude. Even though he knew Zhou Qingkong was an inborn expert, he did not show the slightest fear. Obviously, his backing was somewhat powerful. I want you to get out now. You jolly well should do so. Annihilate me? Stop bragging, lad. Zhou Qingkong spoke to the young man with a sullen face. He knew which side he should be on by now. Fine, you. The young man was morose and his face was flushed with redness. He pointed at Zhou Qingkong with constantly changing expressions. Zhou Qingkong, you better watch out. If I don't destroy your hotel today, Yuan Fei, will tarnish my own reputation in Shangjing. Didn't you hear me asking you to get out? Zhou Qingkong gradually turned gloomy when he saw Yuan Fei's behavior, encompassing him with a tyrannical oppression. 5 minutes. Just you wait. Yuan Fei felt the magnitude of Zhou Qingkong's imposing demeanor. His face paled, he gritted his teeth, and spoke ferociously. Then, he turned to Wang Xian and his gang with icy cold eyes. And you guys too. Just you wait. I'll show you what it takes to provoke me. Let's go. He then turned and spoke to Ling Yi and the other two people next to him while he dug out his phone exasperatedly. Humph. Zhou Qingkong was slightly embarrassed. He took a deep breath and turned to look at Guan Shuqing again. Miss, it's my honor that you stay in our hotel. I hope you have a pleasant rest today. Thank you, Director Zhou. Guan Shuqing was delighted on her face as she expressed her gratitude when Director Zhou went all out to offend the young man in their defense. You're welcome. Miss, which room are you staying in? I'll show you the way. Director Zhou said quickly. It's okay. We can go over ourselves. Guan Shuqing shook her head. It's nothing. It's my pleasure to serve you. Director Zhou shook his head in a hurry as he led them ahead. Manager's son, behind him, was a little dumbfounded as he stared at his boss with doubts on his face. Who was that girl such that his boss did not hesitate to offend Yuan family? Wang Xian, Xiao Yu, and the rest went into the president's suite. Boom boom. After Wang Xian placed his things on the table, Elder Fong opened the window for ventilation, and they could hear the roaring of engines outside. Smash! Subsequently, the shattering of the glass window was heard. Wang Xian, Guan Shuqing, Xiao Yu, and the rest were slightly stunned as they went to the window immediately. What a lineup! Elder Fong looked outside with a surprised look. It's Shang Jing, indeed, with daring people stomping over the hotel of an inborn expert. At this time, more than a score of supercars were gathered at the hotel entrance. Each of the supercars was vrooming loudly with unruly young men standing in front of them. They were gazing at the hotel before them with arrogance. The engine sound from earlier had been from one of the supercars crashing into the hotel rampantly. Arrogance above anyone else. Zhou Qingkong, you son of a bitch. Get your ass out here. Those whores, too. A familiar conceited voice was heard, stunning Wang Xian and the rest as they exchanged gazes. Let's go down together, Wang Xian told Xiao Yu and Guan Shuqing immediately with a stern face. How dare he scold us? The girls were infuriated with that young man's cockiness and swollen head. They put down their stuff and headed downstairs. Bam! However, when they reached the lobby, a figure was sent flying to their faces. He spat out a mouthful of blood with a face as white as a sheet. Director Zhou? Guan Shuqing was aghast as she exclaimed. She hurriedly walked over and checked on him. I'm fine. As soon as Director Zhou saw Guan Shuqing arrived at the lobby, he revealed a smile on his pale-looking face. At the same time, a hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. Haha, how dare you agitate my buddy? Zhou Qingkong, are you sick of living? A disdainful and complacent voice was heard. The hotel door was knocked down entirely, with a sports car crashing into the sofa in the lobby. Yuan Fei stood beside it, and he did not feel sorry for the luxurious car that had crashed. With his chin lifted up, he stared at Zhou Qingkong disdainfully. When he noticed Wang Xian and his gang were walking out, his face turned cold with a taunting look. All the luxury sports cars had already blocked the entrance of the hotel. More than a score of cars were parked at the entrance. A young man was sitting in a limited edition sports car at the center, and he had crossed his legs with a smile as he remarked just now. Beside that young man stood a domineering middle-aged man. Obviously, he was the one who had struck just now. Apart from that middle-aged man, in every sports car sat a young man with taunting looks. They wore branded goods, drove branded cars, the typical rich second generation who had strong backings. Other than this group of affluent young men, several middle-aged men and elders were around with several inborn experts amongst them. Such a force was daunting. You guys came out. Haha, I'll make sure you kneel over here for the entire night. Yuan Fei took a look at Wang Xian and the gang with a stone-cold face. He was so conceited that, in his eyes, he had high regard for no one. He's quite something. No wonder he was such a rich idiot in Shangjing. They really must have some backings if nobody dares to go against them. Wang Xian observed Yuan Fei and turned his attention to the rest of the young men and two inborn experts at the door. Finally, he fixed his eyes on the young man at the center who had spoken just now. His last name is Sui? Is he from Sui Huang's family? Upon recalling what that young man had said, he whispered to Xiaoyu, Lan Qingyue, and Guan Shuqing next to him. All of them froze for a moment. If that's the case, it'd be interesting. Xiaoyu exhibited a teasing look as he looked at the young man in the sports car at the center position. With a smile, he said, Hey, lad in the middle, your nanny is here. If you're not paying your respects, then what are you waiting for? Boom. Xiaoyu's words struck all the young men in the sports car, dumbfoundedly almost immediately. How dare a lass speak to Sui Ao in such a manner? Tired of living? The young man in the middle was slightly stunned as he looked at Xiaoyu, Lan Qingyue, Guan Shuqing, and Elder Fong. With a smirk drawn at the corner of his lips, he sneered. Tell me, what do you think of asking them to crawl over to lick my shoes and call me daddy? Chapter 302. Crawl on your knees here and pay respect to Great Marshal Nanny. 1. Tell me, what do you think of asking them to crawl over to lick my shoes and call me daddy? Sui Ao looked around him as he commented casually with disdain. However, just as he completed his sentence, he broke into laughter and answered his own question. I think that's a pretty good suggestion. After which, he stood up. The surrounding group of young men naturally saw him as their leader and got out from their cars. Brother Ao, those girls over there are pretty good-looking. Licking shoes might be a little too much. Let me remove my shoes instead. Haha, Guzai, are you trying to stink them to death with your size 45 feet? I can't imagine the stench of his feet after he removes his shoes. You are too cruel. The few young men broke into laughter and joked as they walked towards the hotel. All of them were swollen with inordinate arrogance. They were all from elite-tier families in Shangjing. Each one of them possessed considerable strength. Moreover, they had now gathered together and had Sui Ao, who came from the highest-tier existence in Shangjing. Therefore, the group was fearful of nothing. When the crowd walked into the hotel, a middle-aged man and an old man stood to the left and right of Sui Ao respectively. Both of them gave off horrifying vibes. Sui Ao, who was standing in the middle, looked at Wang Xian and the group with contempt. He walked towards a chair at the side and placed one of his legs on it. I, Sui Ao, typically wouldn't argue with girls. However, you guys have offended my brother, and therefore you guys have offended us. Sui Ao squinted his eyes and shouted, Come here and kneel down. Come and kneel down immediately. Otherwise, we will toy with you till you die. Yuan Fei stared at Wang Xian and the group and chided before walking to the side of Sui Ao. Hee, you guys are so incredible. Wang Xian looked at the group of 20 to 30 young men coldly. Who are those people? Why are they so noisy? Yeah, why are they still kicking up a fuss in the middle of the night and disrupting our rest? At this moment, some guests arrived at the lobby of the hotel. Clearly, the commotion caused when the car crashed directly into the hotel had alarmed many people. 7 to 8 middle-aged men were in their pajamas. They had tattoos on their hands, with fat drooping down their face, but they looked extremely fierce. They bemoaned unhappily. However, when they saw the group of young men in the lobby, they were taken aback. Their gaze fell on some of them as their pupils constricted. Young Master Zhun, young Master Feng, young Master Li, the few of them immediately went over to the group of young men to greet them. However, the group of young men wasn't paying attention to them. Their eyes were still fixed on Wang Xian's group. SK, you guys must be eager to die to offend young Master Zhan and his friends. A middle-aged man chided Wang Xian and the group to get on the good books of young Master Zhan. Scram. Mo Qinglong looked at the group of middle-aged men and shouted. Horrifying aura and killing intent swept towards them. You are... Plop. The group of middle-aged men couldn't withstand Mo Qinglong's aura fully as they were knocked unconscious and fell to the ground. After which, Imo Qinglong turned to Sui Ao and the group. Contempt and disdain were written all over his face as he said, "Can you afford the consequences for making us kneel before you? Inborn expert? It's no surprise that you guys are acting so presumptuously." Sui Ao squinted his eyes and stared coldly at Imo Qinglong as he continued. "From your accent, I believe you must have come from somewhere other than Shangjing. Haven't you heard of the saying, in Shangjing, even inborn experts have to keep a low profile? Otherwise." The middle-aged and old men beside him stepped forward at this moment. The aura of inborn experts immediately shrouded towards Imo Qinglong as they continued the sentence for Sui Ao. "Otherwise, you will die too." "Haha, I wonder who gives you the guts to be arrogant in our territory. Right now, I'll give you 5 seconds to get here and kneel before us. Otherwise, you guys can forget about leaving Shangjing. Not even an inborn expert could escape." Yuan Fei's haughty voice sounded once again. "Don't be so imperious." When Guan Shuqing saw the arrogant looks of Sui Ao, she was infuriated and continued, "You are Sui Ao? This has nothing to do with you. Stay out of this and don't be arrogant. Otherwise, I'll let my master know." "Haha, imperious?" Sui Ao burst into laughter. "A few foreigners dare to offend my brother. It's only natural that I'll be involved now. Let your master know? Even if your master was here, he would have to kneel before me like you guys. All of you here have to kneel before me today until the sun rises. Otherwise, I'll strip you guys and throw you on the street. You girls are pretty good looking. I believe there would be lots of people interested." "Hee hee, Brother Ao, these girls are really beautiful." "Haha, they are pretty good. However, I still prefer to see the horrified looks of beautiful girls." "What a pervert you are." As Sui Ao completed his words, the group of young men around him joked and conversed casually. This group of young men wasn't concerned about the strength that Imo Qinglong had demonstrated, or Wang Xian in the group. "You. Great, great. I'll convey what you said to my master." Guan Shuqing was referring to Sui Huang when she talked about her master. She had asked Sui Ao to stay out of this, but he started insulting them instead. This infuriated her and made her pull out her phone right away. "Io, she's really calling her parents now. Haha, this is interesting." When Yuan Fei saw Guan Shuqing take out her phone, he looked at her with ridicule and mocked loudly. "I'll let you call anyone you wish. In Shangjing, there's really no one we are afraid of. Get your master here. I'll let him kneel down in front of me too," said Sui Ao disdainfully. Hearing what Sui Ao and his friends had said, a cold light flashed in her eyes. "Hello, master. Someone is bullying me." Guan Shuqing's voice sounded. When she called through the phone to Sui Huang, she immediately spoke bitterly. "Huh, there are people who dare to bully you when Brother Wang Xian is with you? Where are you? I'll send my guys over." In a Sihiyuan in Shangjing, Sui Huang sat with his legs crossed, cultivating. When he heard his disciple, he was taken aback initially. "His name is Sui Ao. He brought many people with him, and they surrounded us. After which, he demanded that we kneel before him, and even wanted to strip us and throw us to the streets. I told him that I'd be informing you, and he said he would make Master kneel in front of him if Master was here." Guan Shuqing snitched to Sui Huang as she repeated everything Sui Ao had said previously. "Haha, you really called your master? In that case, tell him to get right here, kneel before us and apologize." Sui Ao heard what Guan Shuqing said over the phone and responded loudly with disdain. Chapter 303. Crawl here on your knees and pay respect to Great Marshal Nanny, too. Sui Huang, with the phone in his hands, froze, standing in the room. He was stupefied with what his disciple had told him just now. Upon hearing the haughty voice from the phone now, his expression darkened immediately. The other party wanted him to go there and kneel in front of him. On top of it, it was the descendant of the Sui family who had said it. For a moment, Sui Huang's face sank with a cold expression. Not only had his descendant bullied his new disciple, but he even wanted him to go over with his knees on the ground. This unfilial descendant may have not known the truth, but it was still disgraceful and unforgivable. Looks like some of the younger fellows of Sui family are accustomed to arrogance. Sui Huang darkened his expression. As the pillar and founder of Sui family, he fought with his life such that they could become a sacred clan and achieve their current status. Now, he was old. He could only have a few decades of lifespan left. For the future of Sui family, he had spent 20 years roaming around the country just to find a successor. He wanted to find a disciple who could take over for him and inherit his prowess. Nothing is impossible for those who try. He finally found a fantastic disciple, and he was sure that this disciple would be extraordinary. Her strength could reach his realm easily. When he turned old, his disciple could still maintain the prosperity of Sui family for another century. Yet, a lad from Sui family had dared to provoke his own elders, and even acted arrogantly in front of him. Sui Huang had a nasty and cold look. "Disciple, where are you now? Someone will be there in 5 minutes. I have not been meddling with family affairs for 20 years. It looks like some people have forgotten about how their ancestors worked hard for the family." Sui Huang hung up his phone and made several calls. "Get your ass to Fenghua Love Hotel now. My disciple is surrounded by a lad from Sui family. He was so arrogant that he asked me to kneel and apologize to him. You better get over and settle it for me now." A phone call was made to the current Sui family leader. The leader of Sui family, age 75, was the grandson of Sui Huang. When he heard his grandfather's exclamations, he was so frightened that he almost peed in his pants. That's right, almost peed in his pants. His grandfather was a godlike existence to him. In his impression, his grandfather may have been a mild person, but anyone who provoked him would be as good as digging his own grave. "Yes, grandfather. I'll bring my men over and check out who that is. I'll ensure Marshal Ant's safety." A film of cold sweat covered that old man's forehead instantly. As one of the 3 sacred clans leaders in Shangjing, when had he ever been so panicky before? Ensure her safety? Get it done in 5 minutes. Sui Huang hung up the phone immediately as soon as he finished. "Yes, yes." Despite hearing the dial tone, the old man continued to answer and nod in fear. Subsequently, he called his siblings one by one with a darkened expression. "Grandfather is angry. Check who the troublemaker is now." A phone call got all the 3rd generation of Sui family to put on their clothes and set off in a panic. They were the current headmen, running the family. If their grandfather was angry, this was serious. All the cars, one by one, drove out from Sihiyuan at late hours. Sui family had a score of 3rd-generation members, and the number increased when it came to the 4th and 5th generations. Currently, the Sui family had over thousands of members, blooming with offspring. "Haha, you finished making your call? Interesting. Let's see who your master is. It'd be good if she was a pretty woman. No fun having an old man." Sui Ao chuckled loudly. "Brother Ao, you have unique taste. Haha, what do you know? Brother Ao is growing rapidly. From Lolita, young girls, young ladies to pretty women. We should learn from him." The bunch of young men remarked with a smile. I hope you can laugh 5 minutes from now." Upon seeing their cocky faces, Guan Shuqing spoke with disgust. "All of you will be kneeling before me in 5 minutes." Yuan Fei stared at them with disdain. Xiao Yu, Lan Qingyue, and the rest stared at them coldly. "We'll wait and see if you can laugh later." The bunch of young men smiled and commented on Xiao Yu and the rest, looking at them from head to toe. Wang Xian and his gang kept quiet. "Your 5 minutes are up. It looks like your master is late. In this case, why don't you guys just kneel down now? I don't have the time for you." Sui Ao looked at his watch after 5 minutes and commanded them with contempt. At this time, luxurious cars were parked at the hotel entrance with old men walking out from them. Brother, clan leader." All the elderly people looked over and greeted the old man who was dressed as a clan leader with 2 golden words, Shang, Sui, on his clothes. "Let's go." The old man swept a glance at the rest before he frowned at the sports cars in front of the hotel. A cold smile surfaced on his face. As soon as he was at the door, he heard the arrogant voice. The clan leader immediately pulled a long face and walked in. Those elders behind him were also looking stern. This incident not only enraged the clan leader, but it also incensed their grandfather. That man was the fundamental reason for Sui family to be standing firm. "Do we need to kneel before you two?" A voice resounded in the hotel lobby, stunning the group of young men. Suiao was puzzled as the voice sounded familiar to him. "Who? Get in here." He turned around with some impatience in his soft bellow. "This?" When the young man at the door turned around, his entire body stiffened up. All of them parted their lips with wide and round eyes in disbelief when they saw the group of old men arriving at the door. A total of 20 old men were walking into the hotel with eye-catching family uniforms. There was another old man with an expensive-looking walking stick standing to the side. The bunch of young men at the door unconsciously stepped aside with trembling bodies when they walked in. The atmosphere was so still that they could even hear their own breaths clearly. "Clan leader." Suiao opened his eyes wide when he saw that all the third-generation members of Sui family, including his grandfather, were here. All he had was a surprised look. "Clan leader, grandfather, why are you guys?" asked Suiao fearfully as uneasiness surged. But he did not dare to think further. The clan leader cast an indifferent look on Suiao, the current most outstanding offspring of Sui family. He did not reply to anything as he swept his gaze across Wang Xian. Eventually, he fixed his eyes on Guan Shuqing and quickened his pace. The elders behind him sped up at the same time. Chapter 304. Crawl on your knees over and pay respect to Great Marshal Nanny. 3. An old man with a walking stick walked at the back of the pack. When he walked to Suiao, his body shivered a little as he glowered at him. "Grandpa, what happened?" asked Suiao cautiously. At this moment, the experts of the Sui family of his grandpa appeared with him. "What happened?" the old man growled while trying to keep his anger in check. To the astonishment of the crowd, he waved his walking stick ruthlessly towards Suiao's legs. Bam! Crack crack! Without holding back at all, the walking stick swung heavily on Suiao's legs. Sounds of his bones snapping instantly propagated throughout the lobby. "Arg! Grandpa!" Suiao shrieked in pain. However, the physical pain he felt from the body wasn't what he was most concerned with right now as he looked in horror at the grandpa who had always doted on him dearly. To his surprise, the old man with the walking stick didn't even pay attention to him after hitting him and simply walked past him. The surrounding group of young men held their breath, and they were terrified. The current clan leader of the Sui family and every member who held considerable influence in the clan were all here. These 20 people represented the sacred clan, Sui family. Moreover, they were the ones with speaking rights in the Sui family currently. Every single one of them had extremely large authority and influence. Suiao was just one of many grandsons when compared to these true big shots in the Sui family. Read more chapter on novel full. Regardless of seniority or standing, Suiao was nowhere close. However, the crowd was soon stunned and horrified by what was to come. The clan leader of Sui family and the third generation of Sui family walked towards the girl that made the call directly and lowered their heads respectfully. "Greetings, Marshal Senior Aunt." "Greetings, Marshal Senior Aunt." "Marshal Senior Aunt." The clan leader of the Sui family and the third generation of the Sui family are addressing that girl as their Marshal Senior Aunt. "Oh gosh, this. The clan leader and a member of the upper management of Sui family are calling that girl their Marshal Senior Aunt. She. What's her real identity?" The surrounding group of young men looked on in horror and disbelief. When Suiao saw his grandpa and the clan leader lowering their heads in front of the girl, his body couldn't help but shiver in fear. "Marshal Senior Aunt. Marshal Senior Aunt. Marshal Senior Aunt." He was in a daze as he mumbled. Slowly, fear and horror gripped him. If that girl was the Marshal Senior Aunt of his grandpa, Wouldn't that make her the disciple that his great-great-grandfather was taking in? Oh gosh. His great-great-grandfather was an immortal-like existence in Sui family and the true soul pillar of the Sui family. That phone call from before. At the thought of this, his body started shivering violently. He didn't dare to think about the consequences. It's over. It's over. At this point, Guan Shuqing was once again embarrassed by the group of old people addressing her as their martial senior aunt. The age differences between them were too huge. Guys, get up now. You don't have to be so courteous. It's our fault that martial senior aunt had to suffer such grievances in Shangjing. The clan leader of the Sui family continued deferentially. The disciple of their grandfather was deserving of them acting deferentially towards her. The old men with the walking stick turned around, glared coldly at Sui Ao and demanded, "Crawl here on your knees and pay respect to great martial Nanny." Yes, yes. When Sui Ao heard his grandpa's voice, he immediately crawled over. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. "Great martial Nanny, this is all my fault. I failed to recognize you. It's my fault. Please give me another chance." Sui Ao had completely lost his pride and arrogance as he kneeled there, apologizing constantly. The group of young men behind him was paralyzed with fear. Yuan Fei felt his whole body go numb as he lost all control of it and collapsed onto the floor, after which he quickly went on his knees. "I was wrong. I was wrong." When the group saw Yuan Fei go down on his knees, they also kneeled down in horror. Sui Ao was the leader of this group. Now that even Sui Ao had to kneel down, they could only do the same in front of the Sui family. TSK. Guan Shuqing sneered at Sui Ao, who was horrified and lost. "You were still so arrogant a while ago. Why are you acting like a wimp now? Martial Senior Aunt, Grandpa instructed us to handle this matter. We will definitely give you a satisfactory answer." Seeing that Guan Shuqing was clearly still displeased, the clan leader of Sui family spoke immediately. In that case, I leave this to you. Thank you for rushing here at this hour." Seeing the group of old men being so respectful to her, Guan Shuqing spoke gently as she would feel bad if she continued to be demanding. It's all right. Martial Senior Aunt, do you want to return with us to have a good rest?" The clan leader of the Sui family asked, revealing a smile. "No, thank you. I'll just stay here for the night. I'll see you guys tomorrow." "All right. In that case, we shall not disturb Martial Senior Aunt," said the clan leader of the Sui family, after which he looked to the group of old men that had come with him. "Grandpa is dissatisfied with the current state of Sui family. Aren't some of our disciples from Sui family getting too arrogant outside? It's time to teach them a lesson. Perhaps some of these juniors have forgotten about the sweat and tears our grandfathers and fathers shed to give us what we have today. It's time we do something." As Sui Ao heard what the few old men said, his face turned as white as a sheet. Clan disciple Sui Ao has offended his senior and broken the rules of the clan. Your identity as a core disciple of the clan will be taken away, and so will the benefits bestowed upon you. You shall now be deployed to manage the company. The clan leader of the Sui family gave his orders immediately. Upon hearing this, Sui Ao felt desolated. With all his rights as a disciple of Sui family taken away from him, he could only be an ordinary member of the Sui family and would have to work for the family. His future might end up even worse than ordinary Sui family's disciples. All the young men around him were shocked and horrified. Sui Ao was the most gifted in the current generation of the Sui family. He was also ranked 10th on the Outstanding Young Heroes chart. Yet, everything would be taken away from him as he would be shifted from the core of the family to the fringe businesses. It would likely be difficult for him to make a comeback even if he made it to the Inborn realm. Or rather, without the resources provided to him by the Sui family, how could he possibly reach the Inborn realm? His magnificent life could now be declared as completely finished. Guan Shuqing looked plainly at Sui Ao. After bidding goodbye to the group of old men from the Sui family, she followed Wang Xian and the group back to their rooms. The clan leader of Sui family looked at the middle-aged men standing beside their martial senior aunt. We have investigated the matter in the day. If you do it again, our Sui family will come and annihilate you. Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you, clan leader Sui. When Zhou Qingkong heard clan leader Sui, he was thrilled. His meager life had finally been kept. His gaze fell on the desolated Sui Ao as he couldn't help but sigh. You must be too eager to die. As a junior in the Sui family, you stood up for others and humiliated the disciple of your great-great-grandfather. If this isn't courting your own death, what else is? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.